We have to mingle. Keep aware.
I used to do that every 2 hours. Have something.
Okay.
And then I said, well, maybe I just push it at 10 o'clock.
Okay. Ready? The meeting will please come to order. Adequate notice of this meeting as required by the Open Public Meeting Act has been that on January 7th, 2026, a copy of the notice specifying the date, time, and location was posted on a bulletin board outside of Borough Hall, given to the clerk administrator, mailed, faxed, or emailed to the Courier News, and placed on the Borough website. If any member believes that this meeting is being held in violation of the Open Public Meeting Act, please state your views at this time. These proceedings are judicial in nature. Only those items on the agenda will be commented on or questions answered for. Proper judicial decorum must and will be maintained. Next item, roll call, please.
Chairman Adair.
Yes.
Ed
Here.
Owlett.
Here.
Roberta Karpanitz.
Here.
Morgan McLaughlin. Here. Rich O'Neill.
Here.
Brian Vidimski.
Here.
John Flores.
Here.
Eric Alvarez.
Here.
Stuart Daniels.
Here.
Good. We have a quorum. Are there any conflicts tonight? No? Next item. Pledge of allegiance.
Pledge.
What do we have?
Next up, we have the minutes for May 20th.
Someone like to move them?
I'll move them. Second.
Move them. Second. Any discussions? Roll call, please.
Chairman Adair.
Yes.
Ed Owlett.
Yes.
Roberta Karpanitz.
Yes.
Morgan McLaughlin.
Yes.
Rich O'Neill.
Yes.
Brian Vidimski.
Yes.
John Flores.
Yes.
Is carried. Resolutions.
First resolution we have is 2025-022Z Somerville Automotive Realty, LLC. It's on 1044 Route 22, Block 92, Lot 26.
Someone like to move it?
I'll move it.
Move to second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Not everyone was eligible for this one. Chairman Adair,
Yes.
Morgan McLaughlin,
Yes.
Rich O'Neill,
Yes.
John Flores,
Yes.
Eric Alvarez.
Yes.
Okay. The other resolution will be carried till next meeting? That is correct. Okay. Want to talk about Mike's report?
Real quickly, Mr. Chairman, the report was submitted. I don't know if the board had a chance to look at it for the interest of brevity. It's basically similar to what's been done in the past. You have the numbers going back 20 years, and you'll see the scatteredness in the planning on the map showing what the board's actions were. And we can certainly follow up when the board has more time at the next meeting. If there's questions, if the board wants to drill down on it at the next, I'm suggesting next meeting.
Sounds good to me.
Does that work for the board? I mean, you guys just got it, and
What do we have on the agenda for next meeting? We have
I'm glad you brought that up.
Hamilton Street?
I do believe we do not. I think PS&G asked to be continued, and I think we have 71 North Dowdy. That's the garage. They submitted everything. I just sent a voicemail to Ryan Baker to confirm that, but I do believe that's on for the next meeting.
Okay,
So we'll have some time. That's the garage that got carried.
right.
That's was a few feet from the property line. So we have time if you want to go through the annual. Anybody has questions on the annual report, but you'll see the percentages. It's literally not almost identical to what's been going on for 20 years. There's no one zone, but we can go into the next meeting.
Okay, so no trends like we had.
Yeah, if the board has questions, I can certainly give you the maps of the last 20 years. You can see that, I don't see a trend, Mr. Chairman, but we can certainly drive into that when the board has more opportunity to review it. Plus, I'm sure the interested parties here aren't really interested in the annual report. So we can address that at a later
Should
date.
be. I mean, this board has a record. This board does have a good record. In fact, in 70 years, this board has only lost one appeal. That's an amazing record. And that was one we should have never lost. Okay. Yeah, I am. Okay, so what do we have?
Next item we have is hearing 2025-012Z, Nan Realty Holdings LLC, 20 and 30 West End Avenue, Block 131, Lot 19 and 20.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Tuvell.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jason Tuvell, attorney for the applicant. As the board recalls, we had one public hearing on this application thus far. At that meeting, we presented testimony from our architect as well as testimony from our civil engineer. There was a lot of comments both from the board and the public at that meeting. And what we decided to do once we concluded with our architectural testimony was to stop. It was getting late in the evening, and we decided that we would go back to the drawing board, make some plan revisions, and also provide some additional information to the board in connection with the application to address concerns that were raised and comments from both the board, the public, and the professionals. So what we did is we resubmitted plans where we made modifications both to the site plan on the civil drawings, which we'll go through, to the aesthetics and to the height of the building, lowering the height to become a compliant height at 35 feet. And also just enhance the architectural aspects of the project that we thought were actually very good to begin with, but I think we've made them even better based on comments that we received. Further, we also provided additional traffic and parking data to the board through the reports that we submitted. And those are accounts based on observations made at similar facilities and obviously through industry publication data. So in terms of the batting order or how we intend on proceeding this evening, this is what I intended to do. So I was going to bring our civil engineer back, Mr. Chairman, to go through the site plan changes that we discussed. So that'll relate to stormwater, landscaping, things of that nature that are more civil oriented. Then I'll bring up our traffic engineer next. Our traffic engineer is also our professional planner in this case. However, he's just going to be testifying on traffic first. We'll bring him back at the end for planning. That testimony will be focused on, obviously, access to and from the site, site distance, but more importantly, trip generation, because that was something that was raised at the last meeting in terms of vehicular access to and from, how many vehicles do we perceive coming on a peak hour basis. And we're going to show some comparisons to some of the other uses that are permitted in the zone in which the property is located and what could be built here. In addition, like I said earlier, we'll also provide data as it relates to parking. Then third is we have a self-storage expert or consultant. If you recall at the last meeting, I indicated that we would have somebody who would talk about operations. So this person who has over 30 years of experience in the self-storage industry, both operations, management, development, she will go through an analysis of not only the operations and how these facilities function, but also why there's a demand or a need for this in this area. And there's objective data based on industry standards that she'll provide to the board and speak to during the course of her testimony that'll explain why the applicant is proposing to build the building here, the demand in the area, and how these facilities operate. So I think that'll be very helpful based on a lot of the comments that were made at the last meeting. And then fourth, I'll have our architect, Paul Schwartz, go through, like I said earlier, some of the aesthetic changes that we made to the building based on comments that we received at the last meeting. If we get to planning, we'll see. My guess is if you stop at 10:30, we won't get that far, but we'll see how that goes. So, Mr. Chairman, I did renotice as required, as you had requested of me. So that was done. And I know Cliff can obviously speak to that. But if there's nothing further, I'd be happy to call my first witness, Mr. Chairman, with your permission.
I did review the notice, and I believe it is legally sufficient as to form and content. Just want to know, if people want them, there are seats up in the front, if you're having trouble seeing from the back or hearing from the back. Just thought I'd mention that. Go ahead.
All right, no problem. Thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, can I call our first witness?
Yes.
Okay. So I'd like to call Paul Much from Stonefield Engineering and Design. He's our civil engineer. His colleague testified at the last meeting, so we'll have to qualify and swear him in for the record just because he did not testify at the last meeting.
Mr. Mike, please stand. Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Paul Much, M as in Mary, UTCH from Stonefield Engineering.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tuvell?
Okay. All right, Paul, just because you didn't testify at the last meeting, can you give the board the benefit of your educational background, licenses held, and experience testifying as an expert in the field of civil engineering at similar land use boards in New Jersey?
Yeah, certainly, and as I stated a few weeks ago in front of this board,
Oh, you just got to press it.
look at me,
There you go.
rookie mistake. Absolutely, and as I stated before this board just a couple of weeks ago, I am a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I graduated from Rowan University with a bachelor's degree in civil engineering, and I've been accepted by more than 100 land use boards in the state of New Jersey,
Okay, we'll
including
stipulate
this
to his qualifications.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right. So, Paul, what I'd like you to do, you're familiar with the comments that the board made at the last meeting, as well as some members of the public.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So, what I'd like you to do is let's walk the board through the changes that we made based on the initial plan and what was subsequently submitted. And then, if you could also speak to, while you're testifying, the comments received from Mr. Cole more recently and whether we can adhere to those comments. Just as a preview, we stipulate that we can comply, or we'll work with Mr. Cole on all of his comments, but Mr. Much will go through those. Do you remember what, I was looking through my notes. We're at A3? Okay, so we're at A3.
A3.
Excellent, yeah, so this is, I am giving Olivia the night off. You had seen Olivia on this application previously. She closed on a home yesterday, so she's busy unpacking right now. And I know you've heard a lot of testimony on this already from the civil, so I'm gonna stick to kind of the highlights of your board professional's letter, as well as just some of the changes and tweaks and some more of the specifics in the engineering design that we have. So with that, I'll get right into it. The first exhibit I'll mark, which I believe is A4, it is a site plan rendering exhibit. Oh, up to 3, not include, okay. A3, it's a site plan rendering exhibit. It's dated June 1st, 2026, and prepared by my office. This is simply a colorized version of the site plan that was submitted as part of this. The technical contents are the same. We've just taken the liberty of adding in color as well as the landscaping to give the board at least a better sense in the 2D realm what this is going to look like, and you'll see some excellent 3D renderings as we move through the totality of the application. So we'll begin with the building, which has definitely been the biggest subject of discussion so far. It's a 75,655 gross square feet self-storage facility. The footprint itself is 18,850 square feet. That's 3 stories above grade. And then there is a basement on this facility of 19,105 square feet. The engineer letter did mention an enlargement of the building. That was not the overall intention of what we went back to the drawing board for, but what we heard from both the board, the professionals, and the public is we wanted to be more specific and more final on our design. So we have a more developed architectural footprint that we've based our site plan on. So the architectural treatments, the sizing and location of the basement has all been incorporated. That has changed the overall square footage, but it was really more of an effort of us to match the architecturals rather than an enlargement of the footprint. The site plan's just been physically updated to be exactly the same as the architecturals, which is certainly a request that we heard. at the previous meeting. So I just wanted to get that out there. We didn't enlarge the building or try to make it bigger. We just made it consistent to what you saw. So on this site plan, the parking and the circulation remains the same as was discussed previously. We have the full movement driveway off the main road in the same location, all permissible within the DOT access code. We've added an access control gate to the plan just to show that there is a separation of the use on site. It's located on the first island as you enter the building, or as you enter the site. And what that is intended to show is that the first 5 parking spaces that are near the office are for people making quick trips, going into the office and accessing the building, or that are there to either purchase a box or use the office to sign up for a new unit. Pretty low parking generation for that. It's just the office piece. And then if you're already an existing customer, you'll have access through the gate into the rear, which offers you a few more options for loading and operations in the rear. There's 3 additional parking spaces back there. There's also a large loading area with large opening doors that allow people to either use box trucks, passenger vehicles, of things of the like to back in, pull parallel, whatever they see fit to get their items into and out of the building.
I pulled that up. I know. Oh, sorry. I don't know if this is.
Jason, is your microphone working?
Yeah, hold on. I'm just, there we go. So, sorry. I just wanted to be clear on the, sorry, it's not, for some reason this is.
I think it's
Not in. There you go. Okay. So I just want to make sure the gate is going to be a security gate that only. The gate is only going to be a security gate that the customers have access to, and the self-storage expert can go through that, but through a keypad or through a fob or something like that, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And in some cases on these facilities, and you'll hear more from the expert on this, but in some cases these facilities are fully fenced in. We haven't provided that here. That's really more meant for those units that you see where you have the roll-up doors on the exterior where people are really operating outside of the building. Because everything's contained within the building, it's less of a need for a facility like this. But again, the applicant is open to suggestions and anything else as we move through the application, and we're certainly open to hearing that. In some discussions with your engineer, as well as just responding to his review letter, there was a request to expand the overall drive aisle width to accommodate more truck loading. What we have, and I can show it to you or we'll submit it to your engineer, is that we have run the SU30 box truck on this, and it is able to do essentially a K-turn, and I'll just do it briefly on the plan. Pull forward, back into the loading area, and then pull out of the site afterwards. And that truck is the largest U-Haul vehicle that you would see on the site. There's really not a scenario, especially on a site like this, where you would see the larger SU40, which is not even offered by U-Haul, or a tractor trailer. There certainly wouldn't be that on site. So what we've designed this site for is the SU30, the largest U-Haul box truck you can get. That's also a very infrequent use for this. You get very infrequent, full apartment, full house movements going on, and you'll hear more statistics specifically from our expert this evening. But we made the decision to keep the drive aisle the same length because it accommodates our largest anticipated trucks, which is that SU30 as well as the trash truck. And we avoided having to expand pavement and then violating the coverage limits on this site, which is 50%, which is what we're proposing. And that's an important note overall in the plan as well. From a physical site planning perspective, we comply with the bulk regulations. You'll hear more about floor area ratio as well as the height, 2.5 versus 3 stories, from our architect and our planner. But from a physical site planning, we meet the impervious coverage requirement of 50%. So 50% of this site undeveloped and remains that way in the proposed condition. And in addition to that, we have a rear yard setback, which is really where the sensitivity of this plan we wanted to focus on. Keep the massing towards the street, avoid the properties to the rear. We've more than tripled the rear yard setback, and we're compliant with all the other setbacks. So, that was really the intention of the plan. I just wanted to highlight that as we moved through. The trash is also, as I stated, is the same sort of K-turn movement. It's located next to the building, kind of tucked away in some landscaping. Trash truck pulls in, it K-turns out in the loading zone without any major issues. We can accommodate that truck. Again, you'll hear more from our expert. It's once a week. It's not publicly used. People in the self-storage facility are not permitted to use that trash enclosure. It's just for employees and leftover. You want to avoid the scenario where you have people taking their boxes out and throwing it and overloading that dumpster. It just doesn't occur at these facilities. Once a week is, like I said, is when it gets picked up. It's a very low, from a loading and a trash perspective, it's very infrequent use of those, which is the added benefit of a self-storage facility. In addition to that, we added a monument sign at the front of the site. You'll hear more about that as we move through the application, but I think it's important that we identify the site. We're not looking for a pylon or anything large, just something that identifies the eventual user of this self-storage, and you'll hear more from our architect on some of the wall signage that's proposed as well. Moving into landscaping, which is obviously the feature of this rendering. What the intention was is we upgraded the plantings along the streets, hearing the comments from the board, the public, as well as the comments in your board engineer's review letter. And we've maintained the berms and the buffers in the rear to make sure we're establishing kind of that push and pull of the site. So we've added shrubs to screen some of the utilities, we've added street trees, and we've just looked to give the frontage that year-round visual and color pop that will enhance the aesthetics of the architecture, which you'll see more 3D renderings and looks of that as you go through. But we've enhanced that landscaping along the front to get a really nice green band, really nice aesthetics along the front. And then again, what the intention of this application is, not only are we exceeding the setbacks to the sides and the rear, we're also looking to establish dense, double-planted hedges that are on berms, so they're elevating those trees. Those trees will grow 1 to 2 feet a year and eventually turn into a real dense and permanent buffer. Interior to that, we have shade trees and other things of the like, so if you're looking into the site from the roadway or traveling on the site as a customer, the aesthetics and the feel of the site is green and open, rather than some other developments that you might see in the area that are a little bit more pavement heavy. This is definitely architectural and landscaping heavy from this proposal, which is highlighted by the fact that we meet the 50% impervious coverage requirement, which means 50% of the site is landscaped and maintained.
And per Mr. Cole's letter, we also eliminated any landscaping waivers, correct? We complied with the ordinance as it relates to landscaping.
Yes, I believe that's correct, and we can go through that, yes. So in total, 76 trees, 83 shrubs, and 73 mixes of grasses and ground covers are proposed as part of this application as we look to develop it. And we've also agreed to, and you'll hear that in your engineer's letter, there's some decorative sidewalk or in the blue stone area. We're going to agree to all of that and make sure that the aesthetics along the frontage match our landscaping as well as the architecture that you'll see more of as we move through. One of the most significant changes that we made from a civil site planning standpoint on this is the stormwater management system. We were in discussions with your engineer, responding to some of the comments in his letter, and what we've decided to do is, rather than do a green roof on the site, which has been removed, there is a more desirable option to control both volume, clean runoff, and just general runoff leaving the site, and that is a green infrastructure above ground infiltration basin, which is now proposed behind the building, in front of our berms. It doesn't impact any of the buffer that we have previously, but it gives us another opportunity to meet the goals and objectives of not only your ordinance, which is more strict than the DEP, but meet the DEP. And the new DEP rules got delayed by a year, but this plan is consistent with what those rules look like. So we have an above ground basin in the rear. We also have a pervious pavement system, which is highly supported by the DEP in the pavement area to the east of the building. All of this equates to a substantial improvement on stormwater management in general. The existing site is essentially half developed. All of that pavement is running unfiltered and uncleaned into the various conveyance systems in the area. We are capturing all of the runoff. The vast majority of the runoff is associated with roof, which is considered clean. We're treating every piece of impervious coverage on this site to 80% TSS, which is the DEP requirement, and we're conveying that underground. So now that uncontrolled runoff that's kind of flowing to the adjacent properties, we now contain that, treat it, hold it back, reduce the overall volume, and then send it to the DOT roadway underground. So the impact of the stormwater on this site, you get less. You don't have the sheet flow over creating icing issues, and you get clean runoff coming off the site. So just the benefit overall, it is a modern, state-of-the-art, NJDEP endorsed stormwater management system. There's still some comments left in your board engineer's review letter, but we can comply with them all, as we move through this application.
And Paul, I think it goes without saying, but even though I'm assuming that benefits the property significantly as you described, but can you just speak to, does that also benefit the surrounding properties, the roadway? Can you just speak to that briefly?
Yes, certainly. Right now, we have kind of a field of pavement as well as that building that is kind of flowing everywhere. And what we're looking to do is capture it and put it underground so you don't get untreated motor vehicle surface going onto roadways, into people's yards, into the sidewalk. Taking it underground after it's been treated, held back, and reduced. It benefits all of the properties around it, as well as it'll take a little bit of the load off the DOT conveyance system as well, that runs east and west on this site.
Okay.
Lighting, another excellent upgrade that I think was recommended by everyone, is that we're going to do, rather than your traditional commercial lights, we're going to do decorative kind of post-top acorn type lights. The intention is to match what we see in the downtown. There's kind of a mixture where you have the acorn tops, as well as there's some real nice ones downtown that have kind of the acorn on the arm. We're going with the post top here because this is not, and you'll hear more about this, this is not like a commercial use where you need a lot of traffic at night. This is all of this lighting, and you'll see the renderings, is intended to complement the architecture and bring a softness to the site. You'll hear more of this, but a self-storage facility is very lazy and slow and low traffic and noise producing. And if you add kind of that soft lighting as well, it kind of transitions away from a commercial development in my civil engineering perspective. But there'll be a lot of testimony on that as we move through. And then finally, the utilities are all publicly available for this in the frontage. We've screened some of the utilities per your board engineer's recommendations. But again, this is a use that is very, very low demand on the public infrastructure. This is a couple of bathrooms and a couple of employees being used very infrequently. There's a couple of comments, and we owe your engineer some data that shows just how low it is. But we're talking on the scale of 1 to 300 gallons per day of being used and produced in sanitary and water here, which falls far below any kind of retail or commercial use you would typically see. It's just a very, very low burden on the overall public system. And with that, that's everything that I had direct. If there's anything you'd like me to cover.
Yeah, just briefly, I think we hit everything. Just verify, I know the architect will do this too. There's a reduction in the height of the building. We need a variance for the stories you're allowed, 2.5, and we have 3. But from an overall building height perspective, can you just speak to how now we comply with the ordinance?
Yeah, certainly. So the height of the building complies with the ordinance at this time, and you'll see renderings of that. We've reduced the height to comply there. There's a 2.5 versus 3-story, proposal to required here that you hear testimony about, but the physical height of the building complies.
Okay, and that height is 35 feet, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then in terms of the sidewalk and the site itself, all ADA compliant?
Yes, absolutely. There'll be ADA compliant spaces, paths, and sidewalk along all frontages, yes.
Okay. And then around the perimeter of the site, we comply with all setbacks. And can you just speak to, just again, the buffering, screening, and if there's any fencing proposed around the perimeter?
Yeah, we don't have any fencing proposed currently because the buffers and those dense plantings are the intention for that. But if it is the preference of either the public or the board, we can also do more substantial opaque fencing around certain property lines. We're definitely open to that. We feel the landscaping design, as well as kind of pulling the building away, accomplishes that in conjunction with a very, low generating use. But, the buffers are intended to be kind of a permanent thing for the adjacent properties.
Okay, so just to sum up, and the planner will speak to this too, but the application complies with all of the setback requirements?
Yes, that's correct.
And in fact, as you mentioned, for the rear yard is more than triple what's required, correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, and just to be clear on numbers, the ordinance requires a rear yard setback of 25 feet,
Yes,
and we're proposing 76.6?
yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then in terms of the front and sides, those also comply as well?
Yes, they do. Yeah, we're fully within the setbacks.
Okay. So you could technically have a 35-foot high building per the ordinance, 25 feet from the rear yard, which is the closest to the residential, and we're at 35 feet and triple that from a setback perspective.
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay. And then just going back to the fact that we comply with the lot coverage requirement, 50% is required and 50% is proposed.
Correct.
So despite the increase in FAR over what's permitted, the application still complies with coverage, height, and setbacks.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. All right, and just, I know, and you might have said this, so I know sometimes we're repetitive. We can comply with all of the comments, if not already done so, in Mr. Cole's latest review letter dated May 30th, 2026?
Yes, and we discussed that letter with your board professional today, and we intend to comply and work with him on all comments.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have for Mr. Much in terms of his direct.
Anybody have any questions of Mr. Much's testimony?
Yeah, I have a couple. You had said that the largest truck was going to be a U-Haul, a 30?
Yeah, so the U-Haul, the largest U-Haul truck that you can purchase, I forget what they call it, but it's essentially a 29-foot truck, which is the model that we ran was an SU-30, which matches that.
So how do you make sure that a larger truck doesn't try to go there?
Well, it's an interesting point. We did also run the SU-40, which we don't anticipate here, and it can't make as clean a K-turn, but it can certainly operate on the site. It takes a couple more maneuvers to get out, but even the largest vehicle that we would foresee here can find its way off of this site. I think we're open to a tractor-trailer restriction because that sort of truck wouldn't be able to maneuver the site, but we also don't have an intention of bringing those types of vehicles on the site.
Okay, and then you had said something about the site being ADA compliant. If someone is in a wheelchair, let's say across the street, they're at the senior center and they have a small storage facility, they're renting a small unit. I don't see a pedestrian path from the sidewalk to the building. Is there one or not one?
No, it's an excellent point. There needs to be one, and there will be one added, and we intend to provide that.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions? Anyone from the board?
So you will comply with all ADA guidelines?
Yes, we
Okay.
will be fully federally ADA compliant, yes.
All right, that's fine, thank you.
I had a question about recycling. You said that you won't have the ability for your customers to come and take their cardboard and stuff and just put it somewhere. Do you think about putting in a recycling dumpster?
I'll let our operational expert kind of speak to how they handle that, but from a civil engineering perspective, we just have the dumpster.
Yeah. I mean, we could probably
Yeah, we
fit
could.
fit it, but I think let's have Ms. Zells speak to that, and then if we feel we need to add it, we can always have that discussion. That's fine.
Certainly.
Anyone else? Anyone from the audience have any questions on the testimony just given? Questions?
One question?
Come on up and speak into the mic. Give your name and address.
Good job.
Thanks.
Hi, David Lang, 18 Cameron Place in Somerville. For the above-ground water retention, can you speak to the 80% TSS and how you deal with suspended solids with regards to inspection? And I guess there has to be mitigation at some point?
Yeah, so this is actually a very unique scenario where the rear basin will only accept runoff from the roof of the building. So there will not be any pavement, and there'll be landscaping areas that obviously drain in there. But from a suspended solids standpoint, we're getting clean runoff going into that basin, and then will also be further filtered as it moves through the bottom of the basin and gets out to the right of way. So we're not even trying to treat pavement. We are simply treating clean runoff with an infiltration basin.
So what's the expected maintenance or inspection for that above ground?
Yeah, so the DEP has very strict maintenance and reporting requirements as part of the new stormwater rules that were passed a couple of years ago. The applicant will be responsible to provide logs as well as inspection reports related to the basin that will be part of an operation and maintenance manual that is tied to the deed. So very strict. It'll be the responsibility of your board's professional to ensure that those are coming in, but it is strict compliance on maintenance of that basin.
Yeah, and by complying with the new rules, we have to file that deed notice showing that the O&M manual is being filed and that we meet all the reporting requirements, correct?
Yes, and it's fully enforceable.
And that's responsibility falls to the tenant or to the?
Well,
operator?
yes, so the owner tenant, I'm not sure how the applicant will set it up, but whoever is operating the site, there will be a contract with a company that is maintaining the stormwater facilities. And they are required by deed to not only maintain those facilities, but also provide reports of the maintenance and inspections that have been conducted based on that manual that we'll prepare for your board professional.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If you're gonna come up, just come on up and we don't waste the time.
Hi, my name is Bob Barth, 214 North Bridge Street. I have 3 questions. Number 1, what if more than one truck shows up at a time, or you have a couple cars in there already unloading? What are you going to do? What's going to happen to the traffic jam on the parking site?
Go ahead. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, you'll hear a lot tonight from our traffic engineer as well as our operations on the physical trips here. But if we get multiple trucks or multiple cars or a lot of vehicles on the site at any one point, that's first of all an unforeseen circumstance, which you hear professional testimony on. And there's also sufficient room that they'll be able to maneuver around each other. We don't anticipate the majority of the parking spaces will be used up at any one time, which provides some room. And we also have, and I'll try to zoom in here if I can. There we go. We also have elongated areas. We have almost 50 feet of drive aisle in the loading zone and 25 feet for two-way movement on the site. So there's a lot of maneuverability for those people, if they did happen to come at the same time, to be able to maneuver safely and efficiently, and you'll hear more from our traffic engineer on that.
Thank you. My next one is the height of the vegetation between the building and the street and what's going to be seen from the town hall.
Yeah, so we have what I'll call traditional like street trees and shade trees along the frontage. So those will mimic what you see in the downtown as far as those species, and your board professional has provided some feedback on some of the species on site. And then there'll be kind of ground plantings along the site. So it should when it's all built, it should be consistent street trees that are with the downtown.
So is it correct that most of those trees are 20 to 30 feet high? And your building's going to be 35 feet? You're going to see the top of the building from across the street?
If we're talking along the frontage, those trees will be planted a little bit shorter, and I'm not sure they'll ever get to 30 to 35 feet high because they are street trees, but certainly the intention of the buffer along the rear and sides, the east side and the rear, is meant to be dense evergreen plantings. Again, I'm not sure if we're going to get to 35 feet, but we're certainly going to have a dense buffer that rises, 20 plus feet.
Okay, so my last question comes to the town hall, which is on the National and State Register, and people go in and out of the front door, which is directly across the street from your entrance. What are they going to see from that when they come out to their cars?
Yeah.
Are they going to see a historic-looking building, or are they going to see something that fits in with the neighborhood?
I think it's an excellent question, and our architect has provided and will present several 3D renderings from that view and others that will show you exactly what the building looks like and what that view, at least close to what that view will look like.
Yeah, and I think too, it's a really good question and I think that's why the developer hired somebody with substantial knowledge of Somerville to design the building so that it would be complementary, to your point, of the other buildings, many of which are beautiful and historic in the area. So, but I think our architect, Mr. Schwartz, is the best person to answer that question.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Sure.
Natalia Clayman, 1 East Summit Street. I had the same question about multiple trucks or multiple vehicles at the same time, which you already answered. But just to follow up, when you said you did the test on SU-30 and it can make a K-turn easily, or it could just make the K-turn, is that test done with the professional driver or someone inexperienced just hiring a truck for a day and kind of moving a truck that they are not used to?
Punt it to Seckler.
Yeah. Our traffic engineer will answer the specifics, but we do use an industry-accepted model for truck turning templates when we do that. It comes with a factor of safety, but again, our traffic engineer will have more specifics on how that works. But it's certainly something that's industry accepted for, turning movements of all vehicles. We run the fire truck, the trash truck, as well as the SU-30.
So basically, it assumes that there will be someone who has some knowledge of driving a truck.
Yeah. I don't think the model is based on, the perfect driver, or the most novice. It's somewhere in the middle to build in some safety.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Michael Weiss, 218 West Summit Street. We heard about the runoff from the roof of the building, but did we go over the water condensate from the air conditioning system that will be running 24/7 during the summer months?
Yeah, I don't have a specific plan in front of me, so maybe we leave that to the architect, but it's certainly something that we can cover and even incorporate into the underground stormwater if that's the preference.
Do we know how many gallons per hour it might generate during humid summer months?
I don't have that answer, potentially our architect, but we can certainly look to get that answer.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Eisinger. I live at 25 Mercer Street. I have a kind of follow-up question. It's sort of related to the traffic and the trucks, but it's also related to the new gating. What happens if somebody gets stuck with the gate? They don't have their fob, they have the wrong password, they have issues like that, and they block traffic. Obviously coming, I'm assured that it won't be locked returning to the street, but getting in there. Have you made provisions for that kind of thing? Especially for someone who isn't used to driving trucks. That's my biggest concern, is people like me renting a truck once every 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, no, I recently drove one of those trucks. It was kind of fun, but what we've done here is we've placed the security gate, far enough into the site that you can have multiple vehicles stacked before it impacts any of the roadway network, which was an important feature just, in case someone is confused or needs to walk in the office. The office will also be manned for the most of the day, so, I think they can assist in that realm as well to get that truck out. And then in a worst case scenario, and you'll hear more from our other professionals, but this is a very low traffic producing use. So in a worst case scenario, if that person had to do a K-turn into the parking field on the right, there's nobody there to help them. They can't do it. They would not be forced to back out onto the highway, because there's the ability to do a K-turn utilizing those spaces. It's a similar distance to the loading zone as the parking. So in like the third fail-safe, I think they can make a safe and efficient movement off the site without impacting the roads or backing onto it.
Okay, and the one last thing I can't see on there, from where I'm sitting, the back parking lot, you said there were 3 parking spaces back there. Is that where the K-turn, where's the K-turning zone compared to where cars would be
Yeah,
parking?
so the K-turning zone will occur, so the largest vehicle that we have will pull straight into the site, pull up next to these parking spaces, back into the loading zone, be perpendicular to the building, and then be able to move out and pull out. They can come at different angles, but that's where the K-turn occurs. The 3 parking spaces are intended for people that maybe just a quick trip in their passenger vehicle. You might get some more, pickup trucks and things in the overall loading area.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Heather McNall Lang, 18 Cammon Place. The water retention, is that above ground or underground?
We have 2 systems here. So the system in the rear is going to be above ground, and the system in the parking will be below ground. So it's kind of a combo.
Okay, can you show me where the above ground area is going to be on that drawing?
Yes, so in the rear of the building, you can kind of see the light lines, but I'll just circle it with my cursor. That is where the above ground basin will be. With emergency, it's actually the emergency overflow goes to the parking area, because we're just trying to pull all the, the runoff from the rear.
And will that be enclosed with a fence or something?
Yes, it will have some sort of 3-rail kind of wood fence, something like that. Something more decorative than a chain link.
Okay. And I guess my other question is, you have lots of plantings, which is lovely, but lots of plantings means lots of leaves. How is the system going to handle all those leaves?
So again, this is part of the previous question that we received. The applicant is required to maintain these basins. So any leaves that fall in the basin, there are monthly, quarterly, there will be different requirements to maintain the basin to keep it clean and free of debris so it can function the way that it's supposed to. Again, very strict in the DEP, deed restricted, so it will need to be maintained. Also, just knowing the applicant, they have very, very nice sites. It's not like some other applicants that you might see let the properties go in disrepair.
Okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Anyone else from the audience have any questions of the testimony just given?
Hey, I have a question for Paul. Paul, it's, the pavement's porous, so the porous pavement will be addressed, the stormwater management on the parking lot area. And the bio retention basin we talked about is groundwater recharge too. So the testing will be done on that for the recharge.
Yes, as we discussed today, we'll do all. We've assumed
Right.
the most conservative minimums at this point. And if this board were to look favorably on the application, we'll do the testing and ensure that everything works correctly and complies with DEP, absolutely.
Regarding the trash enclosure, we had discussions, Jason, on the need for this, who's going to be using it. Is there still perceived need to have an enclosure as opposed to in the building?
Let's have the operator or the self-storage consultant speak to it. And then if the board is still has a, wants to revisit that question, we'll revisit it. And, we're happy to, again, work with the board on that issue. We think it's fine the way it is. That's basically what I'm saying. But if you still feel after hearing her testimony that we need to address it, we will.
And when the gate's down, Paul, the single unit test, the SU30, and the gate's down, you can still make the K-turns to get out. So if the gate's down or up, it doesn't affect the K-turning of the vehicle leaving the site.
Yeah, there's sufficient room. It takes a couple of more turns just because we have the sidewalk there, but you can get the truck around and out of the site. You don't have to back out.
Understood.
Art, I've got a question. It might be for Mike, I'm not sure. The DEP regulations, the maintenance of these systems, there's a reporting requirement. The owner has to report to someone. Is that to the borough or to the state?
There is the last maintenance plan I looked at, should the board grant approval, the major development application, once it's approved, has to be recorded with the deed, on the deed.
Correct.
That language and requirements are specified by DEP, and the last time I looked at one, it was like 5 inches thick. So it covers who's doing it, the frequency, and the frequency is dictated by the DEP of annual maintenance, or if it's not even annual, it could be every 3 months. So there's a whole process that goes into the deed recording to address the stormwater maintenance of that system.
Who would do the physical enforcement?
The physical, technically, the deed restriction or the deed notice says the applicant's responsible, but ultimately it's the borough.
That's, okay.
Ultimately, if the stormwater maintenance system is not maintained, ultimately the borough gets dragged into it because, Jason, you can chime in on this, but I think there's case law saying, and it came out of homeowners associations from the 80s,
Yeah.
that if the basins are not maintained or the homeowner association goes bankrupt, ultimately the borough has to maintain those stormwater management systems.
Right. And also, this is in particular to the self-storage. If you built anything here, any development would require this. But yeah, the rules now are so stringent. As Michael was saying, I've seen these documents recorded. They're like 1,000 pages, some of them. And you have all of these requirements. And then the applicant has to report to the borough. And then the borough is incentivized for the applicant to report because then the state can audit the borough on its compliance with the new regulations. So the applicant really has no choice but to comply with the DEP requirements.
Thank you.
I had one question,
Sure.
only because I'm seeing a lot of these in so many towns I represent.
Yeah.
And I've heard it come up. With regard to the non-underground detention basin, the above ground, you would effectuate safety measures in terms of, you talked about decorative fences and things like this, but we all know, how to defend some towns where, kids get under the fence or around the fence and, maybe get in trouble if they're playing at the detention basin. You'll have measures to, control that, will you not?
Yeah, certainly, and because I do this for a living, like I take my kids to see the basins, so I teach them about it. But what we typically do for these is we have a split rail fence that has non-climbable mesh on there to try and prevent that exact scenario for, people wandering back there. And that's generally the industry accepted approach. We don't necessarily want to end up doing chain link fences around there. They're just not aesthetically pleasing. And I don't think they serve quite the purpose that they're going for. So what I would propose here is a split rail fence that has some aesthetic value to it. non-climbable mesh, which is the industry standard, and to prevent those sorts of issues.
If you happen to see, for example, youngsters playing in the, you would, I presume that the property owner would notify appropriate authorities with respect to that.
Certainly, yes, and you'll hear testimony on the security system. There's cameras. They will know if that's occurring and will report it.
Very good. No, I just wanted to ask something.
Yeah, by design, Paul, I think the stormwater management, the bioretention has to drain completely dry within 72 hours.
Yes, that's a requirement,
So
yes.
it's essentially designed to be dry. Yes, it'll impound water, but we're not talking about, it's not a wet basin. So it's not going to be a water feature. It's going to be a dry basin.
Yeah, it's not a pond with a fountain that acts
Right.
as a basin.
Very good.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. How tall is the fence, the split rail fence?
Typically, they're 4 feet tall, plus or minus, and with the non-climbable mesh, that's how high they go.
All right, and how deep is the basin?
The basin is roughly 4 feet deep from the absolute highest point to the bottom, and then the design storm, let's say we got something like a hurricane, an Ida type storm, you'd have about 3 feet of total water in there with a little bit of freeboard, in your largest 100-year design storm.
Okay. And then just talking about the entrance, if the fence is down in the front and there are cars parked in those 5 spots, you're saying that a 30-foot truck can do a K-turn there, even with the cars in that spot?
No, they would not be able to. But if there are cars parked in that spot, in those spots, the office is open, and the employee can open the gate and facilitate those movements. I think in the rare case that somebody's there after hours, maybe, but then you wouldn't have cars parked in front of the office because it'd be locked.
Here's the problem. We have a parking problem in Somerville. And those 5 spots, ungated, are going to be used by everybody that goes downtown and goes to a restaurant, goes to car night or whatever. So, again, what are your hours of operation?
It's, as of now, we have it at 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Okay. But that's, as people can get through it, when is it going to be staffed?
Right, so we had said 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., but I could have the operator speak more to that, but yes. So they would be, to answer, I think where you were asking, there would be those 4 hours where you could technically not have a person staffed, but somebody could visit the facility.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Will the gate be lighted or have bells or whistles on it?
I don't think we have a specific model for the fence, but I don't anticipate bells or whistles or anything like that. Very slow-moving, lazy gate for the, a similar use.
Yeah, we can stipulate if the board wants that it
Yeah.
doesn't, have lights on it or doesn't, have a sound or something like that. That's fine.
Anyone else have any questions of the testimony just given? No one? Okay.
All right, so Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with you, I'd like to call our next witness, who's our traffic engineer, Matthew Seckler from Stonefield Engineering and Design.
I'm just opening it for Tracy, so it's open. She can just click the PowerPoint when she comes up. Okay. But I'll leave this open for Matt.
Thank you very much. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
My name is Matthew Seckler. That's Seckler. I'm with Stonefield Engineering Design. Address is 92 Park Avenue in Rutherford, New Jersey.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tuvell?
Thank you, Cliff. Matt, if you can give the board the benefit of your qualifications as a
Has he
traffic.
appeared before us before?
Yes.
Yes.
He's qualified.
Great, thank you. All right, so you're going to be testifying as of now, just in your traffic engineering capacity, correct?
That is correct.
All right, so I'll let you start where you want to start, but what I'd like to do is cover trip generation, parking, some of the circulation aspects that the board has brought up, and also compare the application to other uses that could be constructed at the property.
Absolutely. And again, what I'm going to be referencing, there's two publications or two reports that I have submitted to the board. One is titled Traffic and Parking Assessment Report. It was last revised March 3rd, 2026. And then we also provided a technical memorandum, which the subject was Trip Generation and Parking Memorandum, and that was May 20th, 2026. And I'll go through the methodology and what we performed in those memorandums and reports, and also explain what the conclusions were based on our analysis. So again, you've heard from the site engineer in terms of the layout of the site. The site, as was mentioned, is located on West End Avenue, just east of the Mountain Avenue signalized intersection. We're on that north side. We're proposing a single driveway that would be a full movement driveway onto West End Avenue. As council just mentioned, and I think there was obviously some discussions earlier about trip generation, I want to explain how we project traffic, how we come up with our calculations for how much traffic this site may generate in the future. I will also explain what other jurisdictions utilize those numbers for, because this is on a DOT roadway. We will need a DOT permit as well. And then I'll explain some sample sites that we have collected at nearby self-storage buildings and how they compare to the analysis we provided. And then you're going to get a treat. You'll have a second witness after me who specializes in self-storage, who provide even more data regarding the frequency people visit their units, the times they visit their units, based on her experience in the field of self-storage sites. So first off, in terms of coming up with trip generation projections, what we utilize is what's called the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual. It is a book. It used to be books, now it's digital, but it's basically full of data from traffic engineers like myself, where we have counted the number of cars that go in and out of sites. We take that data, we send it off to the Institute of Transportation Engineers. They compile it, they validate it, and they publish it in a publication for engineers like myself to utilize when we want to project what future sites may generate in terms of traffic. This publication is utilized by the county, it's utilized by the state DOT. It is basically the basis for all the analysis for any development within the state of New Jersey on any DOT road, county road, and most likely any local road in the state of New Jersey. This national publication, again, is a composite of data collected from engineers. And for this specific land use type, there is a land use type specific to self-storage buildings. So typically what I do, I go in that book, I plug in the amount of square feet the building is projected to be at, which is a little more than 75,000 square feet, and it will project how much traffic this site would generate on an hourly basis during the peak hours, morning and evening rush hour time periods, Saturday rush hour periods, which is typically in the middle of the day, and it could also tell me weekday or like daily numbers, how much traffic would come in and out. Now, when I give you the traffic numbers, I'm going to be very specific with the words that I use. So I will often say the word trips, and a trip is a trip in, and then you could have another trip coming out. So a single customer coming in or a single customer to the site will actually create two trips. So one customer would come in and out. It's two trips, one customer. So I'm going to try to be clear when I'm talking about trips versus customers. The IT, when I plug in the 75,000 square foot self-storage building, what it projects is 16 trips in the morning peak hour, so that'd be 8 customers. 16 trips in the evening peak hour, again, 8 customers, and 25 trips on a Saturday. And again, that's about 12 to 13 customers. Sometimes someone coming in doesn't leave the same hour, so you end up with an odd number. Or one of the trips could have been the employee coming in and he doesn't leave, or he or she doesn't leave that same hour. But again, in terms of traffic generated during the busiest hours, the ITE projects 16 in the morning, 16 in the evening, 25 on the Saturday. And again, this is also the same data that will be utilized as part of our DOT application in order to get this driveway approved from the Department of Transportation. Now, as I mentioned, the IT is a compilation of data. It also has weekday trips or daily trips. It would project a site like this to generate 98 trips in a day, which is about 49 customers coming in or out. Now, I want to be clear that and you'll hear from the self-storage expert later who knows all about the history of self-storage buildings, the different generations of them. You've seen older ones, which kind of may have all drive-up style. They might not be climate controlled. And then you kind of have these later generations like this one, which is all interior units, climate controlled, oftentimes with an elevator inside. And I think that, you'll hear from the expert in self-storage buildings that the type of customers and the frequency they visit may have changed over time. And I see that in the IT data, because the IT data that we have goes from 1993 all the way to today. So the data, can be, at this point, 93 is 30 years old at this point. When I look at the data set that in the IT that is from 2000 to today, so the last 25 or 26 years, that 98 trips in a day actually drops to 56 trips in a day. So again, I'm not going to opine, the actual business model that has kind of evolved, because the expert can probably explain that better to you. But what I'm seeing is that from a traffic perspective, the studies that are more recent, the last 25 years or 26 years from the year 2000 on, has seen a 40% drop in the amount of traffic that is generated from these type of buildings. And these are already some of the lowest generating type of buildings that you could have in terms of a per square foot basis. So again, while the DOT and the IT, I'm going to use those 1993 till today numbers, what we are seeing is a trend that these are becoming less and less frequently visited. Now, to kind of bookend that, we had recently done counts at 2 self-storage buildings in the nearby area. And this is in our trip generation and parking memorandum report. And they were at 2 locations. One was at 601 Route 28 in Bridgewater. So again, it's within 2 miles of the site down Route 28. We did counts at that site, and we also did sites on a site at 141 US Route 206 in Hillsborough. It's just south of, I think, the Brooks Boulevard intersection that would kind of take you toward Manville.
Yes.
So we did counts at those 2 sites.
And this was submitted to the board. This is in your memo dated May 20th,
Correct.
2026.
Correct. Okay. And again, I'm not saying these are exact apple to apples comparisons, so I want to be clear in what the styles of those sites. The Bridgewater site is very similar to our size. It's 84,000 square feet. Again, we are 75,000 square feet, so similar size. I would note that site has a number of ground floor accessible units. And again, you'll see in the trip generation, and you'll hear from the expert later on, the type of users that use those ground floor units are typically maybe contractors, people coming, like workers coming every morning to grab their paint supplies if they're a painter, or some plumbing equipment if they're a plumber. A lot of times those easy accessible ground floor units get a little more frequently visited, especially in the morning. But that was the Bridgewater site. The Hillsborough site is 141,000 square feet, so almost double the size of our site. So when I give you the numbers, I just want everyone to be aware that site also has roll-up units, and again, it's about twice the size.
But both are larger than what we're proposing.
Both is larger. Bridgewater is in the ballpark, but has roll-up doors. Hillsborough, almost twice the size. We found at those sites, the morning trip generation for Bridgewater was 13 trips, 7 in the evening, and 9 on the Saturday. All of those numbers are less than what the IT or what we were projecting for this site, which again was, we were projecting 16 in the morning, Bridgewater had 13. We were projecting 16 in the evening, Bridgewater had 7 total trips. And on Saturday, we were projected 25, and Bridgewater had 9. So again, kind of what I was stating is the IT is probably on the conservative side when you compare it to existing sites located in the same similar market. Hillsborough, again, almost twice the size. The numbers were 11 trips. We're projecting 16, and our building's half the size. 11 trips in the evening. We're saying 16 again. And on Saturday, that generated 17 trips, and we're at 25. So just, I just wanted to put in there, I have to use the IT. It's what the DOT recommends or requires. But when we counted similar sites, even ones of significantly larger size, the trip generation rates were less than what we had in terms of the IT projections. And so again, that's a nearby sites, of the same use, although again, the building type is a little different. But again, just want to put that on the record because you'll also hear some later testimony from the operator or the expert operator in terms of what she sees in the industry in terms of trip generation. So I want to be able to provide you the information on those 2 sites. Now, when I want to compare trip generation, because I'm going to stick on that subject, to other permitted uses, because obviously we're before this board because a self-storage building is not permitted in the zone. I want to explain what other possibly developments could generate on a site like this. So one example would be a medical office building that does not allow for, that would be outpatient only. Inpatient is not permitted in the zone. At 13,700 square feet, which would be compliant with your FAR, that would be, so be compliant with FAR, compliant with the use.
When you picked the use and the square footage, you modeled it after the zoning ordinance as to what would be built basically as of right, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So a 13,700 square foot medical office building would generate about 466 trips a day. Again, the IT, even using the high number, is 98, so something around 4 times the amount of trips during the day. And in the busiest hours, it would be between 40 and 50 trips during the busiest hours. With a medical office building that is compliant, not a 75,000 square foot medical office building, but a 13,700 square foot medical office building. So again, something in the range of about 4 times less on a daily basis, the medical office, our use compared to a medical office building. A daycare facility, if you had a 13,000 square foot daycare facility, that would generate a little more than 500 trips in a day. Again, so that's about 5 times what even our conservative number would estimate. And daycares are very peak driven. You have a lot of parents dropping off at once or picking up at once. And that actually generates about 150 trips in the busiest hours. So the daycare would generate probably more traffic in 1 hour than this site would generate over an entire day. An office building, a general office, if I know there's an engineering firm that's behind the site, if they were to open in this location at 13,000 square feet, a general office building of that size, the IT or the DOT would estimate that would generate just about 300 trips. So a little more than 3 times the number of trips than our site would generate in a day, even if we're using the conservative numbers. So again, I just wanted to kind of give that kind of comparison to some other permitted uses here that would not be before this board seeking a use variance, would not be seeking an FAR variance, but would still generate more traffic than what we are projecting for our site, even in the worst case scenario. So that's a summary of the trip generation. Trip generation, typically, anything that generates less than 50 trips during a peak hour is considered a minimal amount of traffic and would not significantly change how the roadways around it would function. Even from a Department of Transportation, the New Jersey Department of Transportation perspective, this type of use is considered a minor access permit. It's basically the lowest level of intensity permit that you could get from the Department of Transportation. So again, you're talking about a low trip generator from a DOT perspective as well. Now looking interior to the site, I'm going to talk about parking and circulation next. One, parking. We did similar parking counts at the Hillsborough and Bridgewater sites. And just for the record, I don't think I put on the, I explained when we did those counts in Bridgewater and Hillsborough. They were on Friday, April 24th, 2026, from 9 in the morning to 11 in the morning, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then Saturday, April 25th, 2026, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. We selected those time periods because you'll hear from the expert, Fridays and Saturdays, especially when you get towards the end of the month, typically would be the peak usage of a self-storage building. People who are moving in and out of apartments, things like that, that would be a time period you see your kind of peak amount of activity on the site for those type of users. So again, we did pick Fridays and Saturdays near the end of the month in April.
And that was, again, just to be conservative, correct?
Correct. If you look at an average day, it's possible that the average day could be less than that. We're looking at Friday and Saturday, which I believe would be the peak from those Bridgewater and Hillsborough sites. So we did parking analysis at both those sites. The most cars we saw at the Bridgewater site parked was 7, and again, that's the site that's around the same size as ours.
When you say 7, just explain what that means. What that means.
There were 7 physical cars parked at that site at any one time during the time period we were there. That would include if an employee was there, if a box truck was there, unloading something, if customers were looking to rent a unit or customers were unloading or loading their stuff. Basically, there were 7 cars parked at that site at the busiest time.
Okay, so the most you ever saw parked at one time during the peak hours was 7 vehicles.
Yes, and that was at 10 a.m. on a morning.
And that's again, there would have more square footage. That facility has more square footage than what we're proposing.
Yes, Bridgewater has a little more square footage. When we look at Hillsborough, which again is about twice the size, that had 8 cars parked on the Saturday. That was the most we saw parked at that site at any one time. So again, and that was almost twice the size of ours. If we were to kind of, take the observations that we made and kind of, fit it to what this square footages would be, what a site of this square footage would be, you'd be looking at anywhere between a maximum of having 6 or 7 cars parked on the site at any one time. Just to remind the board, and I'm going to refer to the exhibit again.
So back to A3?
And I don't know if you guys need to put it on the screen.
Yeah, I think we
don't know who
should,
controls
just
it.
so
Yeah.
everybody can see it.
Yes, please.
So I'm zooming in again, and just to remind the board and the public, we have 8 parking spaces. Any one of those 8 parking spaces, you could have access into the building to get to the elevator and load up and down. So those first 5 spaces before the gate, you could use them to unload and load your goods. The 3 spaces in the back could utilize the loading door, which is located kind of in the middle of the building. And you have a 40-foot area that is the loading area in between. Again, each U-Haul is about 8 feet wide. I don't think, as people said, these are not professional U-Haul drivers. Drivers are not going to be able to fit 8 feet each center on center and be able to fit 5 vehicles there. But I think you could comfortably fit 3 and have some nice room for error if you're parked there and unloading. So again, I would say at any one time you could have 11 vehicles kind of on site, loading, unloading, customer, future customer type of operation. We also, again, have that, I think it's a little greater than 40 feet extension at the end of the drive aisle area that, again, allows for easier access to back in. Worst case, if a vehicle arrived, the U-Haul truck arrived and there was no open space, I imagine they would kind of wait in that area, kind of out of the drive aisle and be able to, make their maneuvers when something opened up. But again, based on our observations of even at the Bridgewater site, the Hillsborough site, which is twice our size, 8 vehicles parked there. Again, I think we comfortably could fit 11, without there being any type of issue with loading or unloading or the people kind of pulling into their spaces. So that's that's the analysis that we performed from a parking perspective. Again, you'll hear extensive testimony from the self-storage expert. I think you'll see that her numbers are likely even lower than the numbers that I'm sharing with you, but I wanted to make sure that I put on the record what the IT and the Department of Transportation are going to require us to project for this site, what similar sites in the area have in terms of trips and parking, and then again explain how the circulation would work in and around the site as well.
Okay, so just to kind of summarize, from a trip generation or traffic perspective, in your professional opinion, this is one of the most, or if not the lowest intense use that could go at any location, correct?
From a per square foot basis, it is, I think, the second lowest use that the IT has any data on as a
Okay.
self-storage building.
All right, and compared to the other permitted uses in the zone built as of right, this generates substantially less traffic than those, correct?
Correct. As I mentioned, the medical office building, about 13,000 square feet, which would be as of right, would generate a little more than 4 times the amount of daily traffic. Daycare, about 5 times the daily traffic. An office building, about 3 times the daily traffic. And again, that's comparing to the ITE numbers going back to 1993. I think we're seeing even lower numbers than that on these type of sites.
All right, and with ITE, which is a national average that sometimes boards are, question and say, well, we need some more, data from the local area. So you went above and beyond and studied other locations in the area, correct?
Correct. And again, I think they are indicative of the market area. But I will say that you'll hear from the expert that does the operations that the fact that those sites have roll-up doors may actually make them a little more intense and a little more utilized in terms of like a daily customer basis than these type of units. So again, I think that even though that data may be conservative from what we'll be seeing here.
But point being, it was similar. It was actually similar or less than what ITE projected.
Correct.
Okay. And then from a parking perspective, again, you did the same thing. You took industry data, but you also took local data to see if your numbers panned out into what we're proposing, correct?
Correct.
And you believe, based on what we're proposing from a parking perspective, is more than appropriate for this location?
Correct. And again, we studied sites that were larger, some significantly larger. We studied sites, I would say, on busier roadways or at least similar roadway in terms of volume of traffic. And again, we saw that, parking numbers were, even during the busiest times, near the end of month, on a Friday and Saturday, would be sufficient to fit on this site.
Okay. And I know we didn't talk about this, but we should get it on the record. I know Paul talked about the site layout, but you believe all the parking spaces and loading areas are sufficiently sized?
Correct. And as Paul mentioned, the site has been designed for, I would say the best circulation would be the single unit 30, or I think Paul mentioned the 20s, I think it's like a 26.5-foot long U-Haul style truck. Things of larger wheelbase, if there's a larger U-Haul or a SU40 can maneuver on the site, it's not going to be as easy. And then we would definitely be willing to prohibit, and you'll hear from the operator expert on how they prohibit tractor trailers from utilizing sites like this.
Okay, and then we have the required number of ADA parking stalls?
Correct.
And that is appropriately sized as well?
Yes.
And located where it's supposed to be?
Yes.
In terms of site distance and its, I guess the way that it relates to the sidewalk, can you just speak to that as well?
Correct. Any vehicles coming in and out of the driveway will have appropriate site distance to see any type of pedestrians walking by. I would note that there are currently on-street parking spaces in the location where our driveway is. Obviously, we are also closing a driveway, so it's possible that the parking spaces may move or be shifted around. I know I have not coordinated with any parking authority about replacing the parking spaces or moving them to where the old driveway was. And obviously, this being a DOT roadway, there likely is some sort of agreement or coordination that needs to be had with the DOT as well. But obviously, when you eliminate the parking space that's blocking our driveway, you would then be able to get in and out and see properly.
All right, so you see no negative impacts from a traffic perspective on the roadway network from this proposal?
Correct.
As well as parking, you don't view see any negative impacts, any overflow or anything along those lines?
Correct.
All right, and the circulation, the parking, and the layout has been designed appropriately, safely, and within industry standards?
Yes.
Okay. I have nothing further for Mr. Seckler. As to traffic, again, like I said earlier, we're going to call him back on planning, so you will see him again.
Anybody from the board have any questions on Mr. Sackler's testimony?
I do. Yeah. So what is the lowest use? You mentioned this is second lowest.
And I'm going to be clear here, I would say the first generation of data centers, not the data centers they're building now, but the ones that were almost like off-site emergency in case of Hurricane Sandy, the financial institutions had backup, whereas basically just a bunch of backup computers running. That was the lowest because it was maybe one person keeping an eye on the building.
Okay. And then you just mentioned that you're going to close off the one driveway, and will the town lose parking spots on street?
So I'm going to try to highlight it. I don't know how well everyone can see the screen. This dark gray area on the street is where the existing driveway is. This is where the proposed driveway is. I don't see a reason why parking spaces could be shifted to the left a little bit to kind of go where the old driveway was. I know at some point you get closer to the traffic signal and you don't want to have parking, but I think you're probably far enough away in this spot where, you would probably, this driveway affects maybe 3 spaces, but depending on how you shift them, I think you'll be able to, make them up.
Okay. And then you say the building that you're presenting is 75,000 square feet. And how many units are in there?
So I think you'll hear from the architect. I think they have a layout that is a little under 400 units. But again, I think that they finalize that unit number kind of as they get closer to construction documents. But I think their current layout is a little less than 400
Yeah,
units.
but and to be fair, as we talked about at the first meeting, the layout could change, and it's really based on square footage and sort of the demand, whether more 5x5s are needed or more 10x10s. So you could have 400, you could have 600.
Yep.
But just to fully answer your question, though, which is what I think you were asking, and maybe we should be more clear about it, does the number of units or the square footage dictate your trip generation? And do you, if they were to do 400 versus 600, would that in any way change your analysis?
So for the record, I did look at the IT. They do have some data on the per unit basis of the calculations. Where we used square footage, and when I go back to the 1993 data, we have 98 trips in a day.
Right.
If I use 400 units, it would be 72 trips in a day. So it's, we're likely on the conservative end using square footage. I haven't ran the calculations to see when that break-even point is. Maybe it's 590 units is when it would be 98 trips as well. But if I use 400, it would actually be less traffic than the square footage that I used.
Okay. And then you say that Bridgewater is similar size. It's a little bit bigger. Do you know how many units are in there?
I don't know the number of units in there, but I think you'll hear some confirmation from the operations expert that in terms of leased, both of the sites that I studied are considered, fully leased. Again, I think there's vacancies. There's not, 100% full, but they're at what they consider in the business as fully leased. I don't know if that's 85% leased or 90% leased, but it's basically, a fully operating site.
Yeah, and I'm glad Mr. McLaughlin's asking these questions because these are the kind of things that it kind of anticipated the board would be interested in. So even if you're off by 10%, by 20%, there's still much less traffic than what the permitted uses would be, correct?
Correct. And even from using these high-end numbers from 1993, even if I took Bridgewater and said, hey, listen, we're going to be like Bridgewater, let's say we're 20% more or 30% more, you're still talking about, significantly less trips than a medical office, an office, a daycare, and probably not even quite hitting the IT numbers that I have to use with the DOT. So there is a factor of safety in those numbers.
And you're also not near the DOT's significant impact on traffic and what they would consider to be anything that would negatively impact or materially impact the roadway.
Correct.
Okay. And then in your analysis, you use medical building, daycare, and general office. If 13,000 square feet, what's the parking requirement, number of spaces for those?
I think most of those are 4 or 5 per thousand. So again, I hate doing math while testifying. 5 per thousand is probably about 65 parking spaces, if it's that number. Again, we could be 50. The coverage on this site is compliant. So, a compliant medical office would probably be a building of 13,000 square feet, which I'm going to just approximately probably draw in here as blue. But the whole rest of the site would be able to be parking because that would get us, the whole rest of what's shown as developed on this site would be able to be parking, which I think we'd be able to get that 50 or 60 in that area. Because I understand the question, if I don't want to put it, I don't want to say something could be built and then the parking would require an impervious coverage variance or a setback variance. I feel pretty confident that if our building was 13,000 square feet, we would be able to fit the parking in the rest of the disturbed area we're showing.
Yeah, and we discussed that. You're asking us all the things we kind of went through in our analysis just to make sure we were doing a proper comparison as to something that could be built, with just a site plan with not seeking parking relief, not seeking setback relief, and not seeking, coverage relief or FAR.
And I think even we would be compliant if we had the medical office building, either it could be a 6,000 square foot box of 2 stories, and you could have even more room to disturb for parking. So I feel confident we could do the parking with that scenario.
So in the 3 that you use as comparison and as popular as apartments are in Somerville right now, what would your comparison reveal if it were apartments?
So I'm going to do a rough comparison.
And that just to be clear though, and we're happy to dig into that, but is that wasn't one of the permitted uses, correct? Michael might know. I don't think in the professional office zone, multifamily is permitted, correct?
No more than 2.
Okay, all right, but let's run the numbers anyway.
So 2 units would generate about 1 car an hour. So at most during the peak hour would be typically what you're generating. Yeah, 2 family except duplex is permitted, but on a if you had a 13,000 square foot residential building, I'm going to assume there's, let's say, 11 units. You have room for 1,000 square foot a unit, and then you got some hallways and stuff like that. That would probably only generate like 5 or 6 trips during the busiest hours.
Right.
So that'd be 11, a 10 or 11 unit building.
Okay. And then one last question. What's your feeling about the gate?
So one, I like the gate where it's located. Again, I know when I was watching, it's difficult to see. The gate is located where I'm highlighting in blue right now, where it's about 90 feet into the site. So again, if you're thinking cars are 20 feet long or a U-Haul, even if it's 30 feet long, if you had 3 U-Hauls come in, they would, one after another, which you'll hear from the operator doesn't happen, you would be able to stack those 3 in there at any one time waiting for the gate to open. Again, I don't know, you'll hear from the operator, this may be a site where the gate is open when there's someone in the building, and then maybe the gate is up when it's closed, which means you're likely seeing even less traffic or less cars parked in the area where you need to kind of make that K-turn.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else from the board have any questions?
Yeah, just two quick questions. One is, you ever see my daughter try to back a truck up? It would go to-
A lot of them now are starting to have cameras and things like that from what we're used to, so.
Garbage pickup.
Yep.
It's maneuverable, it's okay for garbage and dumpster pickup?
Yes, and I think you'll hear that the garbage pickup's like once a week, at most, and that we've also angled the trash enclosure to make it easier for that kind of pickup maneuver to occur.
You can maneuver out, turn, and drive straight out, not backing in.
Correct. They would pull in, load up, and then turn themselves around and drive out head first, nose first.
Yeah, okay.
Just a quick question. The DOT, are they going to allow you to put a spot there? Because I think that's a New Jersey Transit bus stop in front of your building.
All right, so then in that case, we would not be able to put, well, and honestly, with parking on DOT roadways, especially when there's bus stops, we end up having to coordinate not just with the borough, the state, and then transit also. Everyone all weighs in on this.
I think it's from that existing driveway to the corner is no parking.
Okay, so maybe we'll get the one space where the existing driveway is, because again, like you said, I think the bus stop starts right after it, but maybe we're not able to shift any further down.
But just to be clear, having a driveway here for a commercial use, any commercial use would dictate that type of driveway, correct?
You'd have, I mean, the only road this site has access on is West End Avenue, so.
Just curious.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make it clear, it wasn't particular to the use, that's all, it was more just about the building.
John, do you have a question?
Yeah, I don't know if this is for you or the expert or the planner, who looks a lot like you. How far do people travel to storage facilities?
Oh, that's what we're gonna lead with, or one of the things we'll lead with, from the operator, and how they do that analysis. Great question, we'll address that.
I've seen her slides, she's got the answer.
How far they travel, how long they stay?
You will 100.
How many square feet per person you should expect?
I was gonna initially have Matt go into some of that, but once we, now knowing that we have a consultant who actually has personal knowledge over 30 years of seeing this, I think she's the best person to answer that.
And then, have you worked on any storage facilities in downtown walkable communities?
Interesting question. So from a planning perspective, I will discuss other sites that have self-storage in kind of this nearby, and I'm going to say fringe of the downtown. I know it's in the walkable area. The Borough Hall is across the street, but it is not, I would say in the kind of redevelopment business zone section. We're in the, the office residential zone portion of the downtown. I have not personally worked on any, but again, I've observed them, seen other ones get constructed, and see the style of building that's been constructed in other areas. But I personally have not done traffic engineering for a site, this specific site.
Okay. And have you done anything related to like pedestrian access to these kinds of facilities? Because there are apartments all within a quarter-mile walking distance. And I can't imagine that someone who's getting their Christmas lights is going to drive a quarter mile.
Yeah, correct. So I think, and there was a good comment in the review letter that our site engineer said they would address regarding pedestrian access from the right-of-way towards the building. I would say, a lot of sites, if you're building a highway site, no one's walking to it. But you're right, this is a type of site where you have a lot of apartments nearby. I think that's one of the reasons why I think the applicant wants to put this here, is because it becomes almost like where you used to have storage in your basement, now you got storage across the street, or storage diagonally across the street where you could grab and go your Christmas lights or things like that, off season if it's not too heavy. If you do need to drive and you're switching over your clothes and coats, maybe you're taking your car, but we will provide access from a pedestrian standpoint to the building.
Okay, but you didn't accommodate pedestrian traffic in any of your analysis at this point?
We did not count pedestrian traffic. We just counted vehicular traffic. And especially the two sites we studied, I think, are both sites that we didn't notice any pedestrian traffic because, again, I don't think Bridgewood or Hillsborough generates any pedestrian traffic.
Well, also, I mean, if you think about it, if you're saying that you get how many customers in the peak hour were you anticipating?
It depends on the hour, but if we got 11 customers and 2 of them were walkers, then our cars is 9 instead of 11. So.
Right, and the point, and even if half of them walked, I don't think I think it's going to be more seasonal, like kind of like what you indicated. But even if like half of them walked, it's only 5 people or 6 people in the peak hour. It wouldn't be substantial.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone else on the board have any questions?
Yeah, just to follow up on that. Is there a number, like worst case scenario, for the peak hours, for how many people would be on site at one particular time? I may have missed it.
So that is where I would typically look at the parking number, because that would be the most people you'd have on one site, assuming everyone is parking, if no one's walking, as the other board member mentioned. So again, what we saw for the parking numbers, the maximum number of cars we saw parked in Hillsborough was 9. So that'd be the most we'd expect. And again, that site is about double the size. Bridgewater was 7, so that would be the most we'd expect. And again, we counted Friday, Saturday, end of month, which you'll hear from the operator is basically as busy as you'll get at the sites.
Does that change during the month? People, people moving out, moving in during the beginning and end of the month versus the middle of the month?
Yeah, you'll hear from the operator that, and you'll hear it directly from her because she's the one who has, I would say, that level of experience. You know, you got the mover outs at one, you know, just near the end of the month, let's say right before the end of the month, the mover ins, you know, just after the beginning of the month, and the middle of the month tends to be, let's say, a little lower than that. But you'll see what, I think she might even have some either charts or figures about that stuff.
Yeah, I have a question. I wanted to know about the emergency turning movements for the fire department. Maybe I might have missed that. How, you know, in case of a fire, how can emergency vehicles get ingress and egress?
Yeah, I think Michael was coordinating with the fire official, but I think, there's full fire suppression within the building. So the building is a fully sprinklered building, which the architect, I think, spoke about that the first meeting, but he can go into that again. But I don't believe the fire official had any concerns about the access.
Stuart, there's not going to be any access. My understanding is they're going to be parking the emergency response buildings on West End. They're not going to try to go onto the site because you can't physically get a fire truck off the site. There was a change. There was an emergency pad site, but it still required a maneuver really that didn't work for the fire truck. Where the buyer detention basin is now, used to be a pad, a gravel area for truck moving, but that required a turn. You couldn't get the truck off the site. And my understanding is the Board of Engineers and the Fire Marshal are not planning on going on the site for a response. It'll be addressed from West End Avenue.
Anyone else?
Rich, are you okay with that? Rich, are you okay?
Yeah, I had just wanted to confirm, you anticipate about 72 trips per day for 400 units, is that correct?
So,
Because I mean, you're showing us peak hours, but over the
Yep.
course of the day, I think you said you had.
I gave you a lot of numbers, so I'm gonna caveat them with different ways. So, if I just run to the IT book based on square footage, and going back using data as far back as 1993, this would say 98 trips, so 49 customers. If I limit the data set to data only from 2000 to today at that square footage, it's 56 trips, which is 28 customers in a day. The 72 number was, the question was, well, what if the units change, go up and down? It was 400 units using the oldest data set was 72 trips, which would be 36 customers. So again, I think looking at the data that I'm seeing, the 56 in a day, which would be 28 customers, is probably more aligned with what I would expect. But the DOT is going to require us to permit this thing at the 98 number.
Anyone else on the board have any questions?
Matt, the analysis on the 13,000, the medical building and the daycare, that's assuming that the building structure is going to be demolished and it's consolidation of the lots. So it's apples and apples. You're not saying one lot, the vacant lot. When you do that analysis, you're looking at the tear down of the existing structure and using the footprint of both lots, correct?
Correct, because in order to make the FAR work,
Right.
I need 54,900 square feet. So yes, it would be this same application, we'd be before the planning board.
Right.
And it would be a building much smaller, a lot more parking,
Right.
and generate either 3, 4, or 5 times more traffic.
Right. So like the medical office would have a huge on-site parking, but like a
Yes.
daycare would have almost 0 on-site parking. It'd be all drop-off.
Yeah, daycares
Except for
of
the
that size,
employees.
you'd have probably 35 parking spaces just for
Right.
drop-off pickup type operations.
Right.
and 20 staff members is usually you'd have on
So
that.
it'd be a huge swing difference on the parking layout for those type of situations.
Correct. And again, you may end up with, a disturbed area very similar to what you see here. You would just have the building and the parking sizes almost flipped. You'd have very small building, lots of parking versus this, which is larger building, smaller parking.
Yeah, the point of saying it all was to show that your trip generation is going to be lower than almost any other permitted use on the site. That's the reason for bringing up the analysis, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Anyone from the audience have any questions on the testimony just given by Mr. Sackler?
Marge Sullivan, 8 South Richards Avenue in Somerville. The two reference facilities that you cited in Bridgewater and Hillsborough, could you tell us the street location of those? What roads do they access?
So the one in Bridgewater was 601 Route 28, which is just after Country Club Road, so it's just west of Country Club Road. And the one in Hillsborough is 144 US 206. It's on the northbound side of 206, just south of, I think I said, Brooks Boulevard.
Okay. And then just to clarify what I heard in response to Mr. McLaughlin's question about the potential loss of street parking. I think I heard you say that you can't guarantee there wouldn't be loss of street parking because of the bus stop, and the relocation of the driveway may not allow you to replace the loss of parking.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely be able to make up one of the spaces. Our driveway looks like it directly impacts one space and parts of two other ones. So I know we'll definitely, again, it looks like we'll definitely be able to replace the one space. The question is the two that we barely touch, is there a shifting that could go on where you could save one or two of them? But again, I can't say for certain. Again, I forgot the bus stop exists to the west of there, so we can't just keep adding parking.
Okay, thank you.
Natalia Kleeman, 1 East Summit Street. So if memory serves right, it's a two-way street, right, with no left turns allowed?
No, I think we are proposing a full movement driveway, so you'd be able to make a left in or a left out, just as the driveways that serve the similar businesses today have.
Okay, so you will be able to make the left turn in a truck coming from the west, from the Somerville Circle, potentially?
Correct, but I do want one caveat to that is that the Department of Transportation also has jurisdiction, so there are many times that we go before boards, we seek approvals, we go to the Department of Transportation, they may say, nope, sorry, right in, right out only. But we are proposing full movement, and really Department of Transportation be the ones that would indicate whether that is okay or not.
Is there a plan in case the Department of Transportation says, no, you cannot make a left turn?
Then we would have to post signage, and honestly, what would happen is we'd have to go to the council, the mayor and council, and have them enforce the turn restrictions. So, you have no left turn signs, and if someone does it, the police would have the ability to ticket if they made that. That's usually a condition of a DOT approval if they want to restrict the turns. Again, I think at this level roadway, at this speed, 25 miles an hour, one lane in each direction, I don't think with clear sight lines, I don't think they're going to restrict the turning movements, but again, they have their own ability to require anything from an applicant.
Right, so I understand that. So potentially, if the no left turns will be allowed, the trucks driven by non-professional drivers, the amateur driver, 30-foot truck, would be going into the downtown Somerville to make a left turn and kind of come back?
They would be, in order to come in, they would be coming through downtown Somerville. When they'd be leaving, they'd be going away from downtown Somerville.
So potential at the worst, at most, you would be sending 72 trucks to downtown Somerville.
Hold on. No one ever said that there would be 72 trucks coming in, and we'll have the operator explain what the distribution is between trucks and vehicles typically.
Okay.
But Matt, can you just explain again in the peak hour how many vehicles may go in and out of the property?
Well, again, I think when we were talking about the number of trips, again, a truck that comes in and then goes out is counted twice. So looking at I'll use the Bridgewater site again as an example. You know, on a Saturday, that site generated 9 trips in the peak hour on Saturday. So that's about 5 trips coming in, 4 trips coming out. You'll hear from the operator expert in terms of the amount of people that bring trucks versus cars. But again, that's the level of traffic that Bridgewater site generates. And again, that's around the same square footage of ours.
Okay, so I understand. So basically, just to make sure I understand, if the left turn is allowed, then you would have not a unknown number of trucks as of this moment waiting to make a left turn, or potentially, if it's not allowed, then those trucks will be going downtown, trying to make a turn.
It could be someone who is moving out of or into one of the apartments in the downtown, you know, bringing their truck from the apartment to here to deliver to, you know, load it up in anticipation of moving.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. My second question is, we talked about that your tests were done with the 30-foot truck, the right SU30. What if you have a truck, like SUV or a pickup truck, towing a trailer? What's the average size of that?
So I guess the question would be, what type of trailer are you referring to? A trailer that's trailing a car? You know, there are trailers that are cars on the back. There are trailers that are little 2-wheeled units. I don't know
Well,
which.
you're trailing one of those, you know, covered trailers where you can put one unit apartment or something. So I Googled it quickly, according to Google, but it's not always right. It says it's anywhere let's say F-150 pickup plus a trailer is between 45 and 60 foot, which is almost double the size of the truck that you tested.
Yeah, in that case, if that style vehicle, and again, you'll hear from the operator expert in terms of the type of vehicles that people bring. I think there's 2 options. One, someone bring that style trailer, maybe backing into one of the spaces, unhooking the trailer, and using that as a, you know, basically unloading the trailer when it's unhooked. So they would almost take up 2 parking spaces, one for their trailer and one for their car. And again, we do have that 40-foot area in the rear that, you know, again, if a vehicle is that oversized, they'd be able to pull all the way back there, and then be able to unload or load at that point, and then be able to K-turn, again, utilizing the loading area. The other thing I want to mention, you'll hear again, I don't want to spoil all the surprises that the operator is going to bring, but a lot of a very, very, very large percentage of these units are sold online and not in person. So when someone is selling it online or over the phone, basically what you have is someone basically telling them what style vehicles you can or can't bring. So a site like this, if you were to rent a unit online, you would get an information that says, you know, this site does not allow any tractor trailers, doesn't allow vehicles of a certain size. Additionally, if you come in person, most people rent their unit before they have all of their belongings in their vehicle ready to unload. They may come a day early, a week early, things like that, so they would have an idea of what type of offerings this site has. As mentioned, I just listed 2 other sites within, you know, 2 to 3 miles of here that have ground floor units that have different circulation patterns. So again, if this site doesn't work for the type of vehicle that someone wants to bring, there obviously is competition in the area in which, you know, those people can utilize those areas. So if you're someone who wants to, you know, bring a whole horse-drawn vehicle, you could unload in Hillsborough or Bridgewater, and not necessarily at this site.
Okay, so we're basically hoping that people will play by the rules and not bring the vehicle that we're telling them they should not be bringing.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
My name is David Kinney. I live on Eastern Avenue in Somerville, lifelong resident. Through your explanation here, you referred to trips of the various sites in comparison to the one we're talking about. Do any of those other sites have 4 to 5 road access to that site as compared to, let's say, Findern or some of the others that you talked about? Because this intersection is the busiest in all of Somerville.
And I would say that
as far as trips, as far as the cars that are on those roadways, and then enter a fire truck having to come into the facility.
So I would say that's one of the benefits of this application. If your concern is that these are very busy roads, West End, Mountain,
Correct.
If those are busy, I would say this is the type of use that you want to see, because what can be built as of right, medical office building, 4 times the amount of traffic, an office building, 3 times the amount of traffic than even our conservative numbers. So again, I would say if your concern is this is a busy area, we don't want traffic, this is the use for you versus what else is permitted in
I
the
don't
zone.
want traffic from the senior citizen and the public library and the tax office. Those people, do you count them as trips?
Again, we are studying the amount of traffic that we would project to generate if we get built. I'm not counting what the existing traffic. I'm saying how much traffic is going to be added to the level of traffic that you're talking about.
But those others have to be included. That's all.
Anyone else?
Suzanne Confer, North Meadow Street. I would just like you to revisit a little bit about the volume of trips and peak hours and when those are. I understood it was late Friday and on Saturdays. Is that correct? And rush hour times?
So I'll tell you the periods that we studied. You'll also hear from the operating expert who has
Of course.
tons and tons of data of how frequent people come, how many, how long they stay, things like that. So what we did our counts was 9 to 11 in the morning and 4 to 6 in the evening on the weekdays, which was Friday. And then Saturday from 11 to 2 at those 2 sites, at Bridgewater and Hillsborough. What we found was that at both sites, the busiest hour in the morning was 9:30 to 10:30 on Friday. In the evening, it was, at one of the sites, it was from 4 to 5. The other site, it was from 5 to 6. And then on Saturday, one of the sites was busier from 11:30 to 12:30, and the other site was busier from 1 to 2. So again, it's varying depending on the customer base, but typically it looks like it's a little after the morning peak hour. 9:30 is a little after what we typically see peak hours, usually 8 to 9 in the morning. Evening somewhat mimics the evening rush hour. Saturday, it looks like it could be early Saturday, or it could be a little bit later in the afternoon.
Okay. And just to confirm, the 2 sites you studied are not in walkable areas,
Correct.
right? They're highway sites?
Correct,
They don't have walkways that go to schools or to borough offices or libraries or downtown or restaurants or cruiser night?
Correct.
Okay. So have you taken into account the fact that there's significant pedestrian traffic, especially during some of those peak times?
And again, I would state.
And I say, hold on one second, I say that not just in terms of, no one's obviously clogging up the sidewalk as a pedestrian, I'm talking more about people walking and not anticipating those kind of vehicles being in that area at that time. A truck's a little different than a car pulling out of a bank.
And I think you'll hear from the next witness regarding the amount of people that arrive in truck versus car. So again, I'm just saying trips. You're going to hear from them in terms of the percentage that would bring trucks versus cars. But again, in terms of the potential interaction between a pedestrian and a vehicle, so I'm just going to use the term vehicle. This is on the lower end of that potential interaction because we have so few trips compared to other uses that would be permitted in this zone that can be built on this site. So I would say from a pedestrian vehicle interaction perspective, this is a better use than what could be built here as of right. But you'll hear from the next witness regarding cars versus trucks.
And I will qualify what you're saying with it's a better use in terms of perhaps trips per hour. That does not qualify as a better use overall. So
That's
please make
another-
that
Right,
clear.
that's
Thank you.
that's a whole other argument.
Right, his testimony right now is just based on traffic.
And I just want to reconfirm that it is just talking about traffic
Cor-
and not
I-
benefit to our community.
As of right now, correct.
Of course.
Just
Thank you.
traffic generated from this project.
I'm sorry?
It's traffic generated from this project, not traffic that's already there, the library.
Right, no,
senior
but my
citizens.
question is traffic generated from
Yep.
this
No,
project.
your
Yes,
your
yeah.
point is noted.
Yes, thank you.
No problem.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Eisinger. I live at 25 Mercer Street. I'm actually carrying on sort of a theme that with the people in front of me. I'm wondering if you have done comparisons in similar urban, I wouldn't say we're an urban area, but similar areas such as Princeton or Westfield or Summit in the downtown area in walkable areas where there are other high pedestrian uses, Princeton especially is very pedestrian. Do you have comparisons with that? Could you make a comparison with that?
I haven't studied, and I don't know of any self-storage buildings in those communities. I would say I do know there's a self-storage in South Orange. But again, from a traffic engineering perspective, I'm tasked with looking at existing sites and counting them. I think later on, after we go through the planning testimony, there may be more discussion regarding the type of use in relation to the area or neighborhood that it's in. But from a traffic perspective, which is what I'm testifying to now, I can only count what exists. And if there's not a self-storage in Westfield or a self-storage in Princeton, I can't count the traffic going in and out of it.
Okay, I'm very well aware of the differences in the Route 22 or Route 28 or 206. I can't remember which ones you've mentioned. 206. Okay, I've lived in Bridgewater for almost 20 years, and their urban or their driving use, it is a much more car-driven society. So having extra trucks isn't the impact on the community. The question is I recognize that this is a low number. When you were testifying, you said you kept testifying in terms of cars. This is not just cars, and daycare centers don't generally have pickup trucks or they may have pickup trucks, but they certainly don't have U-Hauls. So it isn't apples to apples. Would you agree to that?
I would say that I did say the word cars, I should have said vehicles to clarify.
Throughout the testimony, I heard cars. I could be wrong, and I apologize. But
And I'll apologize that the correct term that I should have been using is vehicles. You'll hear from the next witness regarding the frequency of truck versus car, or car versus a commercial vehicle. And I think that hopefully will help answer or help inform the public in terms of that kind of idea of what type of vehicles will be using this site here.
okay, thank you.
Mike Weiss, West Summit Street. So during your testimony, you referenced many times the local study you did in Bridgewater on a Saturday. Was that study done over multiple Saturdays across many weeks or months?
Those two sites were studied that same Friday and same Saturday. We studied it one day on a Saturday, one day on a Friday. Again, for the purpose of comparing that to the IT, the numbers came in much lower. I think you'll hear from the next witness that even the numbers that we see in Bridgewater, we see in Hillsborough is maybe even higher than what the industry sees on an average day. But you'll hear that from the next witness. I can only testify to what I collected. And again, even if the numbers were 20% higher in Bridgewater, Hillsborough, a different day, it's still less than what the DOT requires me to utilize. So I think there is some conservative factor of safety in there.
But it was one Saturday.
One Saturday, one Friday.
So, okay. And what was the weather on that Saturday?
I don't remember. It's possible that it rained because I felt like it rained a lot this spring. So
It rained and it was cold.
But when you got to move, you got to move. So
Yeah.
you
Well,
can't tell the landlord.
I stayed home that day because it was cold.
Correct. But you can't tell the landlord I'm going to take another month because it's raining today.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Do you want to take just a 5-minute break? Is that okay?
5? Yeah.
Whatever you want.
Yeah,
It's up to you. It's up to you.
Take a break.
How much time do you want to take? Just to the 10 minutes, just so the public knows. Okay.
Got to see how many points Monroe scored. Bring in Willis.
I don't think I've ever had the public care so much about self-storage traffic.
You can go back out and fucking count it and supplement.
I could see if we classify truck versus I don't remember.
Bob, hey Bob, I just got a text. Can you do inspections of the curb out there of Dunkin' Donuts tomorrow morning?
Oh, all right.
All right, I'll send the guy a text, tell him that you can do it. I'm at Board of Adjustment hearing, and I just got a break. This is the big 2030, 75,000 square foot self-storage, climate control, across from Borough Hall. You can, if you want to, you can watch it on YouTube if you want.
Well, we do have.
All right?
It is the game.
All right, sounds good.
Woo. Okay.
I'd rather see apartments.
That's a whole nother can.
I know, but it's so weird because when you have all these businesses down there, and it's struggling. A lot of them are struggling. Where do you think that? Yeah, where do you think they're gonna get the business? Where is it just so that?
Somebody's gonna put something, you know?
Oh, like one of those, like,
I haven't seen it in a while. Oh my God.
the back of the car. All the windows are going up. Oh. I don't know.
And that's when I said, oh, fuck. Just cats. I don't know how many cats were in there. Even that cat. Once it gets to the floor, he's gone. Right, I agree. So, we had an application in Nova for a lot of units on the one lot.
That seems to be the pattern.
So you know, underground parking, one-way driveway. Right. It was a one-way driveway. Pitch. Remember that, Rich? You said, well, what happened? Someone's coming out. And then, right. Art went crazy. Right. Galvin. And Galvin went, what? Oh my God. It was amazing.
whole group. It wasn't Tom, but it was his father. Okay. He used to shop, who was the, yeah. But he thought he had connections to. Well, he tried to let him know. This was about 10 years ago. He was. It was like, remember you might be too young. Remember the ads of Live or Memorex? Oh, yeah, The guys in the chair, and he's holding his lunch. The red hair. He's playing. Is it Live or is it Memorex? Well, that's how old you was. Ah! Right.
And there's still no rock or anything telling me where it is. It's a secret. I know it's a secret. It's been 15 years. Who's involved?
Yeah, we were talking about the whole deal. I got it.
You've been reminded. I'll talk to Kevin. Come on with him. Rock said
Well,
yeah, but people don't think it's under there. I'm sorry, I never. That's all right.
Now I hear you.
guys ready? What's the score? Charles? Oh. Willis Reed, bring him out. Jason, can we get the game on? Okay. Let's reconvene.
Ooh, I needed that break. I needed that break like an hour ago, to be honest with you.
Okay. Okay.
All right, we ready, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So the next witness we have is our self-storage consultant expert, Tracy Zells. So we should swear her in.
Please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Tracy Sells, S-E-L-L-S.
Thank you very much, Mr. Duval.
Okay, so we're not qualifying her as an expert, like a licensed professional, as an engineer or an architect or something like that. But what I'll do is I'll still have Ms. Zells go through her background, which establishes her qualifications in this industry. But we're not going to, you agree, Cliff, we're not going to qualify her as an expert in a field. She's more of an operational.
Pardon me, this is opinion testimony, but it's not, she's not a fact witness.
Correct. It's more. It's based on her personal knowledge
Right.
of the industry.
Experience and observation.
Correct. All right. So Tracy, why don't you first start with your? Make sure I get this. Okay. Let's just explain your experience in the industry, how long you've been doing this, what positions you've held, and your experience in managing, developing, and operating these facilities.
Sure. I've been in this business 30 years. I hate to admit I'm getting that old. I have held leadership positions with two of the major self-storage REITs and a VP role within both of those, but also within a smaller privately held national operator. I have been to over 400 facilities in my career and overseen management of 200 plus facilities during that time. In conjunction with that, I have also developed, I own, and I continue to operate 3 facilities for my own account. I have been a consultant in this industry for the last 15 years, working with independent operator owners, developers, and some of the largest private equity firms in the world who has a huge footprint of self-storage facilities throughout the country, primarily in the Northeast, where I'm actively involved in the operations, development, lease-up, marketing, finance, the whole bit. I am a member of the National Board of the Self-Storage Association, which is comprised of over 5,000 owner-operators throughout the country. I am also a member and the treasurer of the Florida Self-Storage Association and president-elect of that association.
Okay. So your knowledge is based on development, operations, and management, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So why don't we continue? I just wanted to establish that. Okay. So why don't you speak a little, and as part of your preparation for this application, you've seen the plans that have been prepared. You're clearly familiar with the building, the layout, and you heard the civil engineering testimony and the traffic testimony that was spoken about this evening.
Yes, and I have spent some time in this local market looking at the population and the lack of existing self-storage facilities in this market, but more importantly, all the new development of multifamily in the market. So you've heard a lot of this before, gross building square footage of about 75,655, which would equate, well, this is not final yet, the number of units to be anywhere from 378 to a little bit higher. I think we said up to 500 earlier. That's yet to be determined. Once an operating partner is on board, they'll help in finalizing that unit mix and what the ideal sizes are based on the demographics of this market. I've seen a lot of facilities in my day, and some are very antiquated and built, you kind of think of Silence of the Lambs type of self-storage facility. Those days are over. This facility that we're talking about has certainly gone above and beyond. It is going to be a state-of-the-art, first-class facility with all the bells and whistles, and certainly very aesthetically pleasing and fit right in the local community. Gate-coded access, we've talked a lot about the gate tonight. Every customer has an individual, unique gate code that only they can use to enter the property. That is controlled. I think one of the questions was, what if there's a backup, a log jam? There is an intercom on the gate or a phone system where if there's someone in the office working, they can help the customer get through the gate. If the office happens to be closed at that time, then there is a call center that can offer the same support as though someone were sitting in the office. So there is a pretty quick remedy if someone is having trouble accessing the gates. And motion sensor lighting throughout the facility to keep it safe and secure. And a big one too is security cameras that will be both inside and outside of the facility at many, many angles to keep residents in the neighborhood safe. I mean, crime is very little in this industry. There just isn't much, so to speak of. And cameras certainly help deter anybody from thinking about entering the facility and going into a unit that might not be theirs. Also, there'll be individual door alarms so that if you enter the property, you can only access your unit. You cannot access anyone else's unit.
Okay.
Mr. Tuvell,
Yeah.
just, I see you're working with a PowerPoint.
Oh, we can mark this as A4. Good point. We'll mark this as A4.
Yes, I'd ask that you do that.
Okay, so we'll mark that as A4, and it consists of how many sheets, Tracy?
Ooh,
21.
21.
21 sheets. Okay.
Thank you very much.
No problem. All right, so why don't we go through the supply and demand? Can you just explain what you analyzed and why you believe that a self-storage facility at this location is needed and how it could serve the community's need for this type of use?
Yeah, just to give you a quick overview, some of this is not of particular interest to this group, I imagine, but in the average facility in the U.S., there's 7.83 square feet per capita, and that's how much is pretty much used. Some markets more than others. And this market, I would say because of the high density and the number of multifamily units, it would be more than 7.8%. 7.8 square feet per capita is desired. In New Jersey, for example, the average rentable square foot per person is 5.01. A market for self-storage, customers are typically going to drive no more than 10 minutes or come within 3 miles. That studies within the industry have proven that that's kind of the typical customer and where they're coming from. If you look at this particular site, within a 10-minute drive, there are 2.1 square feet of climatized, meaning heated and air conditioning, dehumidified units, climatized storage per person. Within 3 miles of this site, there's 2.81 square feet of climatized self-storage. Within 1 mile of this site, there is none, 0. And there is certainly some supply within the 3-5 mile ring, but we'll look at those in a minute. But this just gives you a snapshot of where they are relative to this particular site. The small circle is the 1 mile ring, and as you can see, there's nothing there. But here's an example of some of the existing supply within the 10-minute drive of this particular location. Not at all exemplary of what this particular project will look like, as I think you've probably seen in earlier meetings, and we'll probably see again a little later this evening. And what we also look at in this business is what's the demand. So we know there's limited supply in this market, and certainly limited supply of climatized self-storage, which is what people want today. But why are people using storage? A number of reasons. Decluttering, home renovation, seasonal gear swap, staging a home for sale, a bridge the gap between relocating homes, life transitions, this is a big driver of demand, death, divorce, downsizing and dislocation, and document archive. There are a number of different types of users of self-storage, not all of which are moving a whole household of goods into storage and pulling up in an 18-wheeler with, tons and tons of furniture. A typical customer has a much smaller base of which they're putting in storage. In this particular facility, we're looking at units that range in size from 25 square feet up to 100 or so square feet. That doesn't hold a whole heck of a lot when you think about it.
So just to be clear too, all the data that you're providing, the 3 miles, the 10 minutes, the supply and demand, that's all, you're basing those numbers and basing that analysis on industry standard that's been accepted. Just explain that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yes, so the National Self-Storage Association tracks data from its multiple members, thousands of facilities throughout the country. It tracks data based on those facilities and shares that with those of us that are members of the association.
All right. And in addition to that, does your own experience sort of mirror that analysis?
Absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, some of these traits I can attest to personally. 1 in 3 Americans currently use self-storage, with another 18% planning to rent in the future. I would say from my professional experience, when you are in a high-density market with a lot of multifamily, it's more than 1 in 3, because these smaller apartments simply don't have space for, if you like to canoe on the weekends, or if you have a bike, or put your storage, your Christmas decorations, or your off-season clothes. You just don't have room, so you need that self-storage space. The typical customer, as I mentioned, comes within 3 miles of a facility. 33% of customers are only willing to drive 10 minutes to a facility. Of the 7 facilities within 3 miles of this site, 4 are within a 10-minute drive, and those 4 are like the pictures I just showed you. Old, drive-up units, no security, no, very limited lighting, just not secure and not aesthetically pleasing, and certainly don't fit in the communities in which they may serve.
And the subject development that's being proposed, it's in line with the factors that you recited earlier relating to why people would want to use self-storage. Downsizing, maybe, like you said, life transition, maybe having, their off-season clothes or items that they have to that they have to store.
Yes.
That's what we're looking at here. And from a commercial perspective, you're looking at people that might have documents that they need to store, things of that nature.
Yeah, what I wouldn't expect to see based on my professional experience with both facilities that have a traditional old-fashioned drive-up unit versus a facility that has all interior units where you have to either access through a hallway or an elevator or both. The facilities that have the exterior drive-up units are more geared towards the commercial customer. And those are the people that visit as much as every day. The plumber that stores his parts, or the landscape person who puts his equipment in the unit at night and goes back every morning to get it out to do his work. I don't expect to see that at a facility such as this, where it's a little less convenient to access your unit once you're on the property.
And that's based on your experience in the industry, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to continue through the slides.
So today's customers are looking for certain features of their facility that are important to them. The security that I mentioned, being cameras throughout the facility, 24-hour monitoring of those cameras. So while we have someone staffing the office, typically from 8 or 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., the cameras work and people are on call watching those cameras 24/7, so that if by chance someone comes on the property after gate access hours and they're not supposed to be there, the cameras will pick that up through the motion sensor, and they are alerted that they're not allowed to be on the property, and the authorities are called immediately. Electronic gate systems, as I mentioned, every customer has a unique gate code that they must use in order to get through that gate. And as we talked about a little bit earlier, if the customer has forgotten their code or there's a malfunction with the gate, there is a call button and someone will pick up very quickly and remedy the situation and get the customer, if they're a valid customer, on the property quickly. Units are individually alarmed. Heating, air conditioning, dehumidification is very important to customers today to keep their belongings safe. I mean, you don't want mildew or things like that. And people are willing, they're going to store somewhere close to where they live or close to their work. It's that simple. They have to have convenience. I'm sorry if this is a little small, but this just shows the demographics in the 1 mile, 3 mile, and then 10-minute drive. And I think what's the most important in this particular slide is the fact that we track carefully the number of renter occupied dwellings in a market to determine if there really is a demand for self-storage. And the higher the percentage of renter occupied, the greater the demand for storage.
I'm sorry, can you zoom in? Because I can't read those. I can't
yeah.
read those at all.
Sorry about that. I know, it's hard to see. I apologize.
I'll try my best. If not, I'm going to ask Paul.
Lower right-hand corner.
Oh, you're
Oh,
right.
yeah,
Sorry.
there it is.
Who's ever said that? Good call.
There we go. We're getting there. Whoop. Okay, is that better?
Is that better for everybody? Or a little more?
A little more, please.
No problem. No problem. That's why I asked. That's better, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Counselor, could I ask you, right here, was there a reason why we don't have this beforehand?
It's not something that it's because typically, as Cliff will tell you, when you file documents with the board, it's things that you're asking approval for, like plans and things that are going to get built. This is more of her personal observations and data, but we're probably not going to finish tonight. So if the board wants to review it or anybody wants to review it, I can submit it to the board and you can have it on file.
It would be helpful.
No problem. That's fine.
I ask that you do that.
That's fine. Yeah. We can email it to Ryan and to Michael so you have it. Okay.
Very good.
Go ahead.
So what I was saying is that the percentage of renter occupied is very telling of whether there's demand for a self-storage facility in a particular market or not. The threshold that we like to see is 25% minimum renter occupied in a market. If it's below that, we say, well, there's probably not a big demand for self-storage. In this particular case, you can see the numbers far exceed that minimum that we like in order for a facility to be warranted. In the 1 mile radius, we have 67% renter occupied in this market. In 3 miles, that's 38%. And in a 10-minute drive, that's 36%. So, this data tells me there is a need for self-storage in this market.
Okay.
And this just shows you kind of a quick, and you know this very well, the density in this market and the rooftops around. We look at rooftops, and there are plenty here. If I saw a bunch of green around, I'd say, well, maybe we don't need more storage here, but we don't have storage in this particular close proximity market, and we have a lot of rooftops. We also look, now I have to go smaller here, demand analysis. So this will tell me, based on current population and based on demand, market demand, what we think this market can support. And again, you'll get a copy of this. But what this tells me is what today's population is. And then if you take the fact that there's 7 square feet on average, and that's a conservative number, of storage per capita in a market, that would say that we have a demand in a 1 mile radius for 108,000, almost 109,000 square feet of self-storage in this 1 mile market. What we have today is 0. This particular project is net rentable square feet is 56,000 roughly, give or take a few.
Right, so the 108 is net rentable, not gross, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just to be clear, go ahead.
Yes. So we have 56,000 on this particular project, and then there are a couple of other projects, 2 other projects in planning, and now whether they come to or not is a whole nother question. Actually, there's one in this 1 mile ring, and that's another 54,000. So if you look at this particular site that we're talking about tonight, together with this other possible location, you're talking, you'll have 110,000 square feet of self-storage if both projects continue forward. That would give you 7.08 square feet per capita of self-storage in a 1 mile ring. The national average is over 7, and again, based on my experience, in a dense market like this, it's closer to 8 and above.
Okay.
And let's talk a little bit, this has come up, about the daily activity at a facility. And this data is taken, the Self-Storage Association polls its members, some 50,000 facilities throughout the country, and tracks the average number of trips per day to a facility by hour, by day. So what this tells me here is that on average for the whole week, it's 11 trips per day. And unlike a prior witness, that's 11 in and 11 out. So it's 11 visits, if you will.
So that
22 max is what this is telling you based on trips. This is visits.
in a day.
In a day, right. And, you know, I firsthand can tell you I've sat at many facilities for many days and wished for more traffic because it's kind of boring when you're sitting there waiting for the cars to come and it's quiet. You just don't see a lot. And we'll get into, you know, kind of some of the reasoning behind that in the next visit here, the next slide. So how often do people come to their facility? First of all...
And again, this is based on industry data?
This is industry data, yes.
Okay.
12% of customers visit more than once a week. And sometimes that is to pay their bill. It's not necessarily to move in or out. They come at least once a month to pay their bill if they're not paying online. 18% of customers visit once a week. The same number, 18%, visit once every 2 weeks. 28% of the typical customer visits once a month. 14% visit 3 to 6 times a year. And 10% visit less than once a year. Less than 3 times a year. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry. Yes, less than 3 times a year. That's not uncommon, especially in a facility where you don't have a lot of commercial customers, which I don't anticipate there being because of the nature of this facility and not having outside drive-up units. And during lease-up, which is one of the busier times at a self-storage facility as you're filling up your units, if we have 378 units, which is what we've mentioned earlier this evening, your typical occupancy, the ideal occupancy of a facility is 90%. So that would give you 340 units that would be rented when you're full. And it takes 36 months to get to that 90% occupancy goal.
And that's been your experience?
Absolutely. That is the standard, the gold standard in the business.
And that's in the Northeast?
Yes.
As well?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So based on the math, you're talking about 9 rentals per month. And that's, if everyone rented in person, which they don't, nowadays it's over 60% of rentals are conducted online. So that's one less trip to the facility. So even if everyone rented in person, you're talking less than 1 rental per day. Most people spend 15 to 30 minutes renting a unit and 2 hours to move into a unit. The average visitor is there for 15 minutes once they've moved in. So,
And again, I know I'm saying this over and over again, but I think it's important. The data says that from the self-storage industry and all these publications and reports, but your own experience doing this confirms this data.
yes,
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
So we went on to look a little further at this particular facility based on the average number of visits to a facility and based on this particular sized unit with 378 units. You can see here we took the math, the data from the frequency to visits, once a week, more than once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month, and then we said, okay, if you total all that up times the percentage, so you take 3 times a year, 10% of those people equals 34 renters divided by 180 days. I'm on the last little line here. It's 0.0118 per hour visits. And typically a facility has opening hours gate hours from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. That is typical. It's not necessarily been determined that this facility would have that. If anything, we would have less than that. I mean, the maximum is 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So based on being open 16 hours a day, you would have 1.47 visits per hour each business day.
All right, and let's just make, this is all math and this is helpful. So 1.47 visits per hour each business day, that's the average. You might have more in a peak hour, you might have 0 early in the morning. That's the average. So if you multiply that over the 14 hours that you're open, you get about 20 to 22 visitors per day.
Yes, and that's ambitious. You don't usually get that much traffic at a facility.
All right, and that's, so the analysis that was done by the traffic engineer per ITE, in your opinion, was conservative?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yes, based on industry data and based on my spending many, many hours at many, many facilities throughout this Northeast.
And it's interesting, the data that was collected by the traffic engineer at the other facilities, which are a little bit larger, actually are somewhat correspond with the data that you're presenting. Fair to say?
Yeah, it's not too dissimilar.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of all my formal slides, if you will. But I think, it's fair to say, I heard a lot of concern about big trucks and things like that. I think it's important to note that these units are not huge. You can't store a whole house full of goods in one of these units. You couldn't fit the goods from an 18-wheeler or a 40-foot truck into one of these units. It would just be very, very difficult. You have to rent multiple units to do that. And quite frankly, customers aren't going to do that when they can't drive right up to the facility and dump their stuff out.
So again, I didn't want the traffic engineer to deal with this as much as I wanted you to sort of answer this. The narrative about there being a lot of trucks coming, I think what you're saying is just not the case, correct?
It's not the case because a truck comes when you move your items in and when you move your items out, if you're moving a lot of stuff. But we're not moving a lot of stuff most of the time here. I would say a pickup truck or a van is going to be what you typically see. There might be an occasional small U-Haul box truck, but I don't envision a large truck. I just don't see it based on the characteristics of this facility and this market with so many small multifamily dwellings in this market. People don't have huge homes where they're storing, a whole house full of furniture. We're not gonna have the contractor customer that stores his lawn equipment or, whatever, plumbing supplies, that kind of thing. You're just not gonna see that here based on the nature, the physical characteristics of this particular facility and of this market.
Okay. That concludes my directive. Tracy, we're happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Board have any questions of Mrs. Zells?
Yeah, I have a few questions. Thank you for coming out. I think this was great. So when you say your particular clientele, so the clientele that'll be coming here, is it safe to assume that, it's not going to be somebody that's moving out of a 4-bedroom, 33,000 square foot home, right? It's more or less going to be somebody that's in a 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom apartment.
One of these apartments right around here that you see that I drove through and saw and was amazed at the volume of them. Yeah, I don't anticipate a big fraction of people coming from these big homes. Those people typically have a garage or a basement where they can store their stuff. But the apartment dwellers don't, and most of these apartments don't even offer storage anymore. In the old days, they had a basement with storage and lockers, but they don't build them like that anymore. They don't make enough money to provide that.
So, in your opinion, and since you've been in the industry for so long, how can a storage facility like this support a community like ours?
Because as I briefly touched on, people that live in an apartment, let's say a 1-bedroom apartment, but they like to go canoeing on the weekends and they don't have a place to keep that canoe at their apartment. They may rent a 5x5 and put their canoe, vertically in the unit and access it when they are going out. Or the young lady who has a closet full of clothes from moving out of her parents' house into a small apartment and she can't fit everything. She may say, I'm going to put my winter clothes in storage during the summer and vice versa. Or someone that has no room to store their Christmas decorations in their apartment or their small townhome. They would be the typical customer that I would expect to see at a facility of this nature.
And just to keep going on Mr. Daniel's question, and that's why your analysis was important as to the demand and in this region, correct? And that's why you did the analysis of the 1 mile, the 3 mile, the 10 minutes. You looked at the inventory or lack thereof.
There isn't. There really isn't.
And that's the point that we were trying to make in terms of there's a need for it in the community, correct?
Right, and what does exist in the 3-mile radius is a far inferior quality, very limited climate-controlled space. People don't want that anymore. They want convenience, and they want climate control, and they want a lot of security. Those older facilities can't offer that, and this does. And they're too far. There's some that are 5-6 miles away. People aren't going to go that far for a facility. The data, the industry data would tell you that they come from 3 miles or a maximum 10-minute drive.
And you had mentioned that they're not going to be coming with bigger trucks. I mean, because that's the concern, right? I mean, it's a tight
And I
street.
understand that because that is kind of the image that we have of self-storage. But over time, self-storage has evolved into from a necessity to a convenience. So in the old days, when I started in this business, you really only used storage when you were moving. And you put your whole house in storage and you kept it there for a few months. And then when you moved into your new house, you took it all out. There's far less of that today because people have gotten more used to the fact that they can use storage as a convenience and not just a necessity. So things that they use, they want access to, but just don't have room for.
Okay.
Does that answer your concern?
Yep.
there a number on how long these units are rented for, like a person will rent them for 5 years? 10
Yeah,
years?
the average length of stay is 18 and a half months. Now, I can tell you personally, I've seen facilities older, the longer you've been open, the longer the length of stay. I have customers that have been with me 15 years. You know, the typical customer moves in and thinks they're gonna be there 3 months, but they're always there longer. That's just human nature. Because once you're in, it's not always very convenient to go empty it out, right? You don't wanna waste a Saturday moving your things and renting a van to go pick up your goods and get them out of there. So you just leave them. And people don't go that often. The contractors are the ones that go more than once a week. And I just don't envision, based on the nature of this market and the concentration of multifamily, apartments, and the fact that this facility is all interior units, I don't envision a base of commercial customers. It might be a doctor's office that stores old papers, but they're not going very often to get them. They're just storing them because they have to, until, one day they close up shop or sell their business and go empty them out.
I just have a quick question about you're kind of wearing a couple hats. You don't want to be an expert. I understand you're not an expert.
Yeah, I would say just Mr. Alvarez on that issue. She's not a licensed professional like an engineer or an architect or somebody like that. So we proffered her as a fact witness with substantial personal knowledge in this industry.
Okay. Do you have any background in economics? You talked about like a market demand and such. Do you have per capita?
Yes. First of all, I have an MBA in finance and economics. And I do a lot of operations and development work throughout my career where I look at supply and demand. It's a big part of our industry and in development of our industry. And I've been involved in the development of over 200 facilities throughout my career.
Thank you. I appreciate the background. Have you been at facilities that have a similar population density in a similar geographic restriction as Somerville?
Yes.
Can you name them?
Well, I've been to a lot in New York.
In New Jersey particularly.
In New Jersey, recently, I have not, I'd have to go back and look at my travel logs to see because there's been so many over the time, but off the top of my head, I cannot name one particular one for you.
In your analysis of your 1 mile, 3 miles in 10 minutes, you looked at the growth and the potential growth and where we are now. What do you think the market will bear for a number of storage facilities, say for the 1 mile, 3 mile, 10 minutes?
Yeah, we can go back to that because this will tell you, well, actually, I have it here. Hold on. Give me 1 second. It's in here. I've got it. I think based on population and growth that we can, wrong page. Maybe I didn't print it out. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I don't have it, but I can speak to it a little more generically. I think that based on this facility that we're talking about tonight, and the other one that's potentially out there in the development pipeline, that's within a 1 mile radius. That supply will meet the current demographic demand, the demand.
Well, yeah, you have the current demand.
Yeah, but what I don't have is the square footage.
Okay.
So that's why I was looking for it. I thought I did, but I don't have it on here. But based on the study that I did, the market would still be slightly undersupplied if both of these 2 facilities came on board. Now, I don't know that we could handle 3 or 4 more, but I think we can easily handle 2, if not 3 new facilities. And I'm not talking about a 300,000 square foot building. I'm talking about, 50 to 60,000 maybe a little more.
And when you say that, you mean net rentable?
Net rentable, yes.
Okay.
Because there's a big loss factor, you know, it's typically 70% of your gross building is net rentable.
You're excluding hallways.
Right,
and-
you're
and
excluding
mechanicals.
hallways, mechanicals, elevators,
Right.
office, that kind of thing.
And when we're talking about demand, you're referring to get to the magic number of 7.5 square feet per person, per capita. That's where you're basing the math on.
Yes, and
for the demand.
Correct, and I believe that this market could support a little bit more than that based on the percent of renter occupied.
Okay, so it goes back to the chairman's comment is you just take the population within 1 mile and you would just divide it by the net rateable, net square footage on the buildings, and that would crank out a number of
Right,
rental units.
but I also, if I had it with me, I can take it a step further and say we could support 50,000 more square feet. And if I recall that number, after the two projects that are, this one and the other one that's being thrown around out there, that we could still support an additional 30 or 40,000 square feet of net rentable space in the 1 mile market.
Got it, thank you. The question I have is, people running a business, is there any data out of people running a business out of a self-storage because it's climate controlled?
Yeah, well, first of all, there's no power in the units.
Well, Jason, is that true? Because the last meeting, I thought we were providing receptacles in each unit.
What do you
That's
mean-
not my understanding.
What do you mean receptacles?
Outlets.
Outlets.
Electrical outlets.
The last meeting, there was discussion, there will be outlets.
I think that was, I think if that was said, then well, I'll let Tracy speak to it. Would there be outlets in the units?
I've never seen outlets in units in my entire career.
So if that was the case, then that was misspoken, and there would be no outlets in the units.
You can't control what people are doing if there's an outlet in there. Your power bill would be through the roof. It becomes a fire hazard if people leave lights on with a couch adjacent to the light. You don't put power in a unit. It's unheard of.
And that would deter people from living in the unit,
Correct.
obviously.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, we can go through that in a second too, if that's what the board wants, but we would agree as a condition then that that's the case if the board wanted that to be expressed. But you can't live in the units.
No.
You can't run a business from the units.
No.
And also, the board members and other people had questions about you can't store hazardous materials.
No, the lease, first of all, the lease is very clear as to what you are allowed to store, and we all know that sometimes people break rules. But the managers who work there, part of their daily routine is to walk the property multiple times a day. And while they're walking the property, they like to be nosy. They're tasked with being a bit nosy, and when doors are open, they look and see what's going on in there. And they also get to be very friendly with the customers. So they kind of know, and if they suspect anything is off, we have the right to ask people to leave with little or no notice. If it's a hazardous situation, we can ask them to leave immediately. If it's some other type of issue, we can give them 14 days notice and they have to be out.
Thank you.
This particular facility, is the particular storage units don't have a digital entry?
The units themselves, no, there's two.
they'll be
Well, no,
padlocked?
that's a good question. Yes, sometimes now we're doing digital locks on the doors. So that's to be determined. I think that's something the developer would certainly be amenable to. It's becoming more standard in the industry instead of the old-fashioned, padlock type of lock. A digital lock is becoming more prevalent.
And industry-wide, what's your rate of entry as an owner? Can you just enter a unit, or do you have to give notice?
No, you only in extreme emergencies. It's in the lease. It's explicitly stated that if there is kind of a fire hazard or a hazard, we can enter the premises. But 99 out of 100 times that's not necessary, and we ask people to come and meet us if we need to access their unit. But it's pretty rare that we would need to access a unit.
So you were saying that the average duration of a rental was 18 months?
18 and a half months.
18 and a half months. So that kind of runs a little counter to what you were saying earlier, that people store kayaks.
That's how long they stay with us, renting.
Okay.
You know, some people stay 3 months, I've had customers stay 10, 15 years. That's just the national average.
Yeah, but it runs a little counter to the idea that the people use this, or maybe it doesn't run counter, but the idea that people are using this as a place to store their kayaks.
Well, I mean,
They'll do that. But if the average is 18 months, they're storing their kayaks for 2 seasons and then giving up
I
kayaking.
mean, a lot of young people move a lot. I mean, you know, how long what's the average length of stay of an apartment? You know, some of these newer apartments, I don't have the answer to that, but I would say to you that my experience, having worked with national operators, is that it is not uncommon, especially for the younger generation, to store their outdoor gear and go to it, you know, on a fairly regular basis. And sometimes they stay longer than that 18 and a half months. So that, you know.
And then you were saying you don't have any particular experience in New Jersey of facilities in similar downtime.
Not in recent times. I
Okay.
have several years ago, but I can't remember exactly where it was. So
Okay.
I would rather say I don't have the experience than say I can't remember where, because I don't remember where.
But you said there were some more urban units in New York that you have experience?
I have experience with stores in Staten Island, all 5 boroughs in Manhattan, including Manhattan.
But none of them in like downtown kind of areas?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay,
In Manhattan.
okay. Can you tell a story about how that works in that situation?
Well, I guess, Mr. Flores, what's your question in terms of what you want to know in terms of the difference between what do you want to know specifically about the downtown? Maybe she could opine or give you an answer to that.
How a storage facility in a walkable community works versus the previous testimony about a facility on a highway. So my question is what are the dynamics of a storage facility in a more urban or more...
All right, can I ask it this way, if that's okay? Are there any differences with the analysis if this is in a more walkable community? Does it function any differently? Is there any unique characteristics in an area that's walkable or in a downtown? Is that kind of what you're asking?
Fair.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the difference is, for example, the photos I showed you of the other facilities, they're not in a downtown urban area. They attract more trucks, they attract more contractors, and they attract a longer duration tenant. The commercial tenant typically stays a little bit longer than the residential tenant. But an urban location, people walk there. People don't typically walk with one box to a facility. They're going to save their effort and take multiple boxes to their facility. The access is not as broad to get into a facility. If you are, in a suburban area, you might have 30-foot wide drive aisles. You don't have that in an urban location. And you have all interior units, such as we're talking about with this particular facility. But in terms of the day-to-day, how it functions, it's pretty similar. I guess the access is different.
But your point, and I think it was a good question in terms of it's geared more towards the residential customer versus the commercial customer.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Considering this, I would call this proposed facility Generation 2 of a storage facility. What do you see an exodus of people who are renting in, say, Bridgewater down the street? I rented there 30 years ago. Would you see an exodus of people taking their stuff out of that facility and moving it to here?
No, sir. People are very reluctant to move from one facility to another. I mean, it takes a half a day or a day of their time on a precious Saturday. They have to sometimes rent a bigger vehicle or borrow someone's vehicle to move their belongings. And you're really moving from one box to another, and there's no difference in the unit, if you will,
No.
except that you have better security and better lighting.
Yeah, it has more
But
bells and whistles.
it has more bells and whistles, but it's rare for people to just up and move from one location to another unless there's something dramatically wrong with their current facility, such as a break-in or, you know, feeling less than secure, or the rates keep going up so much. There is an operator in our business who's notorious for giving very high rent increases, not the one who's going to be operating this facility. And people get tired of it.
And also to your point earlier, people stay within their mile radius and their 10-minute drive.
Yeah, I mean, it's convenience. It's all about convenience.
Well, what would be the usable life of one of these first-generation facilities?
The older ones, I
Yes.
mean, you know, I've seen some that are 30, 40 years. You know, as long as they're well maintained, you can put a new roof on, you can repave the asphalt, you can, you know, put new lighting in, you can put better security. There are things you can do to upgrade, and most good owners and operators will do that to keep their asset in good shape.
Following up on that, with this kind of facility, what's the lifespan for one of these types that we're talking about?
I mean, again, it's the same. I mean, because if you maintain the facility, as I certainly expect this developer to do, and I know he will, and the operator who will be operating it for him, they're tasked with doing that as well. So the owner and the operator work in conjunction. It can have a long lifespan.
Tracy, do we know the operator? I thought we didn't know the operator.
Well, I think there's a couple of options, and I don't want to say who, but I know the one that I mentioned that raises rates so much is not in contention.
Good, thank you. Do you allow motorized vehicles in the storage?
No.
No, there's no boat storage, there's no car storage, and that's because there's no roll-up door.
No access. They can't access it, so.
I was looking at vintage motorcycles.
Oh.
I mean, you know, it's rare. You have to have proof of insurance and you have to have a valid license. But again, because of the nature of having to go down a hallway or up an elevator, it's going to be very rare.
So a couple of questions. What are all these people doing now since there's no storage in our area?
They're busting at the seams most likely, or some of them are going out of their way to one of these older, crummier facilities because that's their only option.
Okay. In Mike's report, they were talking about public bathrooms. And I think it's on record that the public will not be able to use the bathrooms.
Yeah, just to be clear, good point. The bathrooms are just for the customers, correct?
Correct. You have to have your code
Okay.
to get there.
All right. And then in your experience with this, how many employees will be on site?
1.5 to 2 full-time equivalents.
All right. And so 1.5 to 2.5 or 2. Why the need for a dumpster?
For the office trash, bathroom trash, you almost don't need it, but you have it there in case someone leaves a box behind, you can throw it in there.
Well, I thought
No,
it wasn't allowed.
But the manager would do that. The manager is the only one who can access the dumpster.
Right.
The clients cannot. It's behind lock and key.
The dumpster is?
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned that the cameras and the audio, who does the monitoring of that?
The management company has either their own in-house call center, if you will. Most of the management companies have an in-house call center, and they staff it 24/7 and respond to, various requests for my gate code isn't working, or, if someone wants to rent a unit after hours, they call that number and they can rent a unit after hours. But it's manned by a call center operated by the management company.
All right. And do they monitor the cameras?
Yes, they do.
They do?
Yes, they
And they're 24/7?
Yes, they are.
and they're taped, so
Yes.
you can go back and
Yes.
take a look at it.
100%.
So the question about, most people, you say 60% order their units by the computer, all right? If somebody wanted to store an electric bike and they come after the place is closed, nobody's gonna see them, they'll be on camera,
They'll be on camera.
and they'll take their bike up and they'll put it into the storage unit. Will they get caught?
Most likely they will get caught because someone's watching their activity when they move in. We can see what they're doing via the cameras.
When they move in, but let's say they do it at, I think you said we're open until 10 o'clock at
Yeah,
night.
but the cameras are still going.
And so they have somebody that will look at the cameras all the time?
Anytime there's motion after 6 o'clock, when the office is closed, the call center is alerted by the motion, and they will look at the camera.
Right. And then you said that the manager does a lot of walking throughout the day. So if somebody has their unit open, they would look inside. But you don't have any ability of going into the unit.
We do not have the right to go into a unit unless we have cause to believe there's some substance being stored that is illegal or against the lease.
All right. And I had one more. You say that one in 3 people need self-storage,
Are using it, yes.
are using it? Okay. All right. It would be good. I'm going to be excited to look at your
Yeah, we'll get it to you for
report
sure.
when we
That's
get it.
fine.
So, thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else from the board?
Yeah, and what I could also do, if the board wants, the other exhibits too, I know you were more interested in this one, but I can just make sure all the exhibits are on file if everybody wants to just take a look at them.
Idea.
Okay.
Anyone else from the board have any questions of Mrs. Zell's?
Oh, I have one more. So you're this far along in the project, and it sounds as if we still don't know the number of units because you have to do a demographic study.
You look at, if, for example, you pick CubeSmart to operate your facility. CubeSmart looks at data in this market, their closest facilities with similar demographics, and says, okay, we rent a lot of 5x5s in this type of market. So we think you need a few more, but they base it on demographics and what similar facilities in their portfolio where they have actual data that shows the size and the demand, and they'll say, okay, based on the data we have, we think this should be your optimal unit mix.
When you mean 5x5, you mean 5 foot by 5 foot by 5 foot, correct?
5 by 5 feet, yes, sir.
All right, now, because you mentioned dimensions a couple of times, and I just want to make sure that's clear.
Yes, I'm sorry, yes. 5 feet by 5 feet.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the board? Anyone from the audience have any questions on the testimony that Mrs. Ells just gave?
Hi, I'm Mary Hodges. I live at 14 South Clark in Somerville. I'd like to make sure that what you've told us and what we've heard with the other experts, that I've got this tied together. We've heard that the storage unit would present a lower traffic impact for us compared to the uses that it's already zoned for, such as a daycare or a medical center. We've heard that the study that you've done is looking to place storage units within 1 to 3 miles of the high rental community. Do you have any information as to how far away someone is willing to rent a storage unit if it is not available in where they're moving to? Because I don't think that we're choosing our apartment based on the access to a rental unit.
No, we're not. I would agree with that, but we're choosing our storage unit based on access to our apartment.
Yep.
The inverse, right?
Yep.
So people, again, are typically, the typical customer will go 3 miles or 10 minutes.
Okay.
Does that
Yeah,
Does that answer the question? Maybe I'm confused.
no, it does help, and it,
Please speak into the microphones, both of you.
Sure, sorry.
hello. So, we talked about what the area is currently zoned for. It would be a medical center, daycare center type of business.
Let her finish her question, and then I might-
We talked about the traffic impact versus the zoning, or versus the storage unit versus what it's zoned for. And the fact that a building, a medical care or daycare center would be the opposite type of structure, where a smaller building, more parking. So we have not spoken about, or we have spoken about the value that a storage unit brings to the community. And you have said that the value is to our rental community, where we are much more than just a rental community. We have a lot of longtime residents here.
What's the question?
Yeah, that would not benefit from it. One of the, I'll save it for a statement to
Yeah, there'll be
to
time,
the
for,
board.
there'll be time for
Yeah,
statements.
but I have
But-
clarified
but it won't be
my
tonight.
information. Okay.
Well,
I will be back.
If I may, I would just add, it's not just apartment dwellers that use storage.
Correct.
People
But,
are renovating their homes may use storage. People that
or
are
we just use
moving-
our garage or our friend's garage.
If you have.
If
I
you
think-
have
It's a very
friend
low
with a
volume.
garage, right.
I think the
Okay.
I think the testimony was just when there's a higher density of rentals, that per square footage number goes up a little bit on need versus if there wasn't as much rental, but there was still a large deficit either way.
Yeah, there's a need for medical centers and daycares too.
That's not before us right now.
Well, he commented, so I said it.
Yeah, we didn't do that analysis. We just do the analysis on the application.
Yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to
Yes,
see.
name?
I'm sorry, my name's Elizabeth Eisinger. I live at 25 Mercer Street here in Somerville. I just wondered if you could put back up the population density. You said that we had, in a 1 mile radius, we had around 15,000 people. And 3,000, and just outside of it was 60,000.
Let me pull that up. Oh, sorry, I'm having trouble. This isn't my computer, so I'm a little, struggling a little bit here. Let's see, is this it? I think this one's it. Yes.
Can you zoom in?
Yeah.
It's
You
hard
want
to
help
see.
you?
Yeah, I'll let you
Just
do.
give me 1 second.
I'm used to a mouse, so
Yeah.
pardon me.
All right, go ahead.
Does that help?
So, yeah, so you're saying that there's 15,000 people live within 1 mile, a radius of 1 mile of here. And within 3 miles, there's 63,000 people. I'm just a little concerned about where you're getting the numbers, because all of Bridgewater is 46,000 people, and all of Somerville is around 15,000 people. So I'm wondering where all these people are and where you got your data.
The data's from the US Census,
Okay.
and it's a circle around the site, so I don't.
It's the actual radius.
Yes.
Okay. And where did you get the data of 67% of Somerville as renters?
Same thing, the US Census.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Scott Schweitzer from 8 Lee Way in Somerville. Staying with the concentric circles, 1 mile and 3 miles from 20 West End. I'm just curious, one of your slides, you had the 2 circles. You don't need to find it, but
Yeah.
I think that what it was pointing out was within those radiuses, which are kind of the sweet spot of how far people want to go to their
It
unit.
was further up.
Wow. There we go.
There it is. Yeah, so those dots represent storage units?
Yes.
Within those, okay,
The,
so,
the red circle is 1 mile, the green is 3, and the blue is actually 5 miles, but
okay.
we
So,
don't really, that's
so,
just.
so the
way
2
it is.
tighter circles, the 1 mile and 3 mile. I'm just curious, maybe you're not the right person to ask, but that's where the storage units are. I'm just curious if within those same radiuses, are there other potential lots for this that are already zoned for storage units that don't involve knocking down a historical house and fitting it into an area where it's not zoned? Because that big that green circle, it goes all the way out probably to Home Depot by the Somerset Patriot Stadium, goes out 22 toward White House.
So there's actually case law on what you're talking about. And we don't have to disprove that there's no other site that's suitable for it. We just have to show particular suitability for our specific site. So, and obviously our planner has to go through that, and all the testimony that we give before that gives our planner the foundational, evidence and data to provide that testimony. But it goes to the particular suitability of this location.
Okay.
I understand your point, but I just wanted to respond. Yeah.
Thank you.
Chris Fogarty, 25 North Dottie Avenue. I back up to the area. I can see all the place from my back porch. We discussed about this type of unit. We don't have a lot of information about this being in a residential area. You couldn't think of any that you were in recently in New Jersey. We talked about the traffic impact.
Well, I think the question was more about a specific downtown area, not near residential. I think that was the question, right? It was more about the downtown area.
Walkability. So this is residential downtown. So in line with that discussion, one of the other impacts is noise. And, the question kind of came to me that you showed up, it's a 75,000 square foot, climate controlled. So you have large commercial AC running.
We have,
But that's not,
that's easy.
that is not something that Mrs. Zell's testified.
Well, no, but you don't normally have something like this right next to single family homes.
But we have to comply. We close at 10 p.m. and open at 6. We actually have to comply with the NJDEP noise requirements. And if there's a noise requirement within the borough or a noise requirement within the county, we have to comply. There's no deviation from that.
Okay, so bordering to a resident has
Whatever
a different requirement
That's
than bordering
correct.
to commercial.
And you'd have to comply with
and
that.
you're meeting that.
You'd have to comply with that. You're 100% right. You'd have to comply with that.
Okay, so that will be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Suzanne Confer, North Meadow Street. So this actually, I want to ask a little bit more about this analysis in this slide.
You're talking about the circle?
Yeah.
Okay,
the
go ahead.
circle.
All right, go ahead.
So, again, professional, respect the depth of the study, respect that, you've laid it all out in great visuals. I'm a little concerned, to echo some of the other comments before, about the data quality here, because if I Google self-storage near me, there's more like 13 within 5 miles, and I have them on my phone. It's CubeSmart, Extra Storage, something.
But we are talking about 3 miles, not 5.
No, 5, but you didn't show them in the 5 miles.
We aren't, but.
I know, but what I'm saying is there's a large number. You're talking about the analysis of what the market can bear. So that's part one, okay? First off, you're not showing that there's an additional 5 to 7 units between the 3 and 5 miles. The other thing you're not mentioning is that in addition to the projects that's in the works for this holding company, I believe there's 2 additional projects from this holding company that are in the works in Hillsborough and Bridgewater, right? And there's an additional 2 on top of that that are being put forth in front of Bridgewater that are reasonably close within driving distance to here. So I want to know if the analysis you did took into account the fact that there's potentially 6 additional self-storage units coming into the market at the same time, competing for the renter business.
Yes, let me, 2 parts. This circle, we don't show till 5 miles because this is a 3-mile market.
You've made that clear.
Okay, so.
But I'm just saying that
Okay,
people
I understand.
who can drive 3 miles can drive 5.
But well, hold on a second. She's doing it.
what she said.
She's doing it based on 30 years of experience being in the industry. So based on what she's saying, and this is her opinion, you're obviously entitled to yours, that would be irrelevant to her analysis, because in her managing and operating over 200 facilities or more, this is what you look at, correct?
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now answer.
And to your other question,
yeah.
yes, I have taken into account the fact that there are other facilities in development in a 10-minute drive. With those other facilities, it was on my slide that showed.
One of them
that-
is within 2 miles.
I'm sorry?
At least one of them is within 2 miles.
Yes, I understand, and I have that. I factored
Okay.
that
So,
into
and
my
that is
demand.
done in the analysis that you showed us in terms of population and what the market could bear?
Yes.
Because this does give our town a situation where this is actually the third question for you. When these units reach the end of life, what happens to them? Like, what's the next phase? Like, sometimes a house in our town might become a doctor's office or a duplex, right? Somebody moves out. A school might become a communal learning center. We had that happen in my old town. The school wasn't needed. They made it into like a community learning adult education center. What happens to a self-storage unit when it no longer has a profitable or useful life?
I don't think we could answer that. It's speculative. She indicated that if you maintain and properly do that, these can operate for decades upon decades. She said that she's seen
20
them.
to 30 years was what she said.
That's as long as I've been in the business.
Right.
I can't speak to before
So
that.
you don't have any reference point in terms of history of units you've dealt with, colleagues that, we provided a lot of incidental examples to different things, and I, definitely appreciate people setting the tone and, that it's not going to be like that. It'll be nice type of businesses or storing their paperwork. But on that same note, what anecdotal information do you have about what happens to these buildings when they reach end of life?
In my experience, I have not seen a redo. I've seen them torn down and rebuilt, and that's probably a handful in my career.
Okay.
So
And do you
that's
have?
the best I could answer. I'm sorry.
Okay, last question, and I'll let other people
No, you're
talk. So do you have data on how fully rented the other 13 or 14 that are within 5 miles of this area?
No, the operators do not share that data.
They don't share that. So we have no way of knowing if those are currently competing and are at 50% each, or if they are busting at the seams.
Well, I can tell you that a facility that's over 3 years old is typically 90% occupied.
Typically, but we don't know that. And the reason I emphasize this again.
No, I don't have actual data. because
Right,
the
and I understand why,
operators
it's
don't
confidential company data people have. I'm emphasizing this again because we as a town are being asked to take a risk in allowing a variance on the use in a business that we don't typically have or have experience with in our town. So I would think it behooves us to be really, really, really sure before we allow basically an essentially single-purpose, very large building to
Where's
be
the question?
constructed.
These are questions. You're
Yeah.
making commentary.
Okay.
What's the question?
So my question was, you don't have any information about what happens after these are done.
No, but what I can tell you is even if they were all empty,
Mhm.
the market data suggests that we could support
Right.
them.
Okay, sorry, I do have one more question. How much garbage per foot gets produced from these?
Very little.
Well, how
People
much?
People don't leave garbage.
But how much?
I mean, what, an inch per foot? There's.
But we don't know how much garbage is going to be generated.
But
She's already answered that.
She
doesn't-
actually
there
said-
really
she doesn't
isn't
know.
because they don't have access to the
It's
dumpster.
actually asked and answered, so.
Okay, do it. Thank you, appreciate your time.
Mr. Tuvell?
Yeah.
I have a question. I'm not questioning your witness's veracity in any way, but she has made reference to certain information or documents that she doesn't have on hand or is cited from them. Could they be provided to the board as well?
When you say, you mean when she was talking about the square footages?
Yeah, I
That's-
say, you know, I don't
absolutely.
have it with
Yeah,
me or something.
Yeah, that's fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we could do is when I submit all of this slide,
I'll make sure that's included.
we can include that, that's fine.
I'd appreciate
Yeah,
it.
that's
That'd be
Not a
great.
problem.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mrs. Els?
Hi, David Lang, 18 Cameron Place. What kind of retail sales does a storage unit typically generate?
For boxes and locks and things like that?
I guess that's what you're
That's all
planning
they
to
sell,
sell.
boxes and locks. $1,000 a month at most.
So it's a relatively small amount compared to
Yes.
overall revenue.
Correct.
Okay, compared to I don't know the answer to this, what is the comparison to the designated uses that are currently allowed for this type of facility, whether it's a daycare or a doctor's office, if they generate much more retail sales? Another question is, what about in terms of employment, how many people do they typically employ?
1 to 2 employees
Well, that just I think he's asking it more like globally. Like that's how many you're saying
at the facility.
are at the facility, but like just in general, because there could be different shifts, different people per
No,
week.
that's
That's
the
it. 1 to 2.
total.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
I just want to make sure I was answering your
no.
question.
Yeah, so 1 to 2 versus what the intended, what the currently approved uses are for, there'd be, you talked earlier about saying there'd be 20 employees and
Yeah,
for
that's
a
what
daycare.
that's what the traffic engineer was saying.
Okay, yeah,
Correct.
so there'd be far more employment with another type of use versus a storage facility.
100%. You're 100% correct about
Okay.
that.
And third, with speaking of the design of the facility, they're very specifically designed. So you stated you've never seen a storage facility, it's particularly something of this type, 3 stories, designed to be modular that could be converted.
I have not seen that.
Okay, but
Not in my career, no.
do you know as a corporate executive, when you're looking in terms of, I'm looking at the value of this site, how do they rate that relative to, let's say, another kind of more convertible office space?
I don't know if she's
Yeah, I
she's just speaking on self-storage. I don't know how she can really answer that.
She's an officer for a company
Yeah,
and a
most of-
conglomerate, and so you should be able to look at a spreadsheet and see what the value of the real
Well,
estate.
I don't, but I also don't know how it's relevant. We're talking about land use. We're not really talking about.
Well, in terms of conversion, it speaks to the other person.
I
talking
didn't
about
think
30 or 40
I didn't think
years.
that I didn't think that was relevant either.
Okay.
We tried to just answer it just because
Got it.
it was asked, but yeah.
Thank you.
I would sustain the objection.
Natalia Clayman, 1 East Summit Street. Am I understanding correctly that your data that you're basing your assumptions on is a national data?
Mm-hmm.
So
you have to. Sorry, you have to answer yes or no on the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just-
Yes,
okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. So it would include megapolises such as New York City, Atlanta, Boston, right? We kind of equating that with the small historic downtown
It
needs.
would also include Annapolis, Maryland, which is a small downtown historic district. It includes a variety of different types of markets.
Right, okay. Are we making any difference? Are we looking at some kind of regional data that's more applicable to Somerville community makeup?
In the supply and the demand, that's all market-driven. But in terms of some of the other data I presented, such as the average number of visits per day, that's a national average.
Right, okay. So you said that you have experience working in 200 storage facilities and been to 400 storage facilities. Are any of those facilities located in a similar location where you have a small, historic, very walkable downtown area? I know that Mr. Flores asked you about downtown, but he was asking about New York City, which is a very different, it's completely different animal from where we are.
I understand, yeah.
So there are any storage facilities that you have experience located in a similar area?
The best I can come up with off the top of my head is a city like Annapolis, Maryland. I don't know if you've ever been.
I've been to Annapolis,
Yeah,
Maryland.
it's-
It is not comparable to Somerville.
Okay.
It is probably 5 times larger
Well,
than we are.
but downtown is pretty small.
We are 2.5 miles all along, you know.
Well, then I guess the answer is no.
Okay, thank you. I have another question. When you were studying local market and how many storage facilities we have around, have you looked at our new modern rental units communities?
I'm sorry, what?
Have you looked at the rental communities that we have around?
And looked at them in what regard?
Well, you testified or you said that there is no storage facilities around in Somerville. And that you also said that, if I remember correctly, that modern rental units don't usually have storage space because it's economically not viable, which runs contrary to my 25 plus experience in real estate, particularly residential real estate. So I was curious, so I looked up, and apparently Somerville has 2 luxury communities that provide storage facilities on site, including the 5x5 units. Furthermore, there are 2 communities that provide large garages and extra closet spaces, walk-in closets, and for additional needs, There is a self-storage facility on Route 28, less than a mile from Somerville Circle.
What's the question?
The
Is there a
question
question
is,
pending?
yes, the question is, when we are considering whether Somerville can support a storage facility, are we really analyzing what kind of rental units we have? Because your analysis says 67% of rentals means we need X amount of square foot in storage. Does that take into account how many storage units those facilities, those rental units, already provide?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, so would you say
It
it's a
doesn't
flaw?
also probably include people's garages, people's houses that have closets, their basements.
I
It
don't.
doesn't-
I don't think that that's the same. You said that 67% of rental units within an area qualifies for X amount of storage space.
No, that's not what I said. I
No?
said the number of the population density equates to how much storage space, not the number, not the percentage of renter. I said we'd like to see a high percentage of renter, but that's not what determines whether there is a need for self-storage. The population, whether it's multifamily or not, I just said the multifamily is kind of above and beyond what the normal population is, because it's almost like a bonus for renting units. I didn't say that factors into what the demand, how much supply is needed.
I thought that you said that the more rental units are in the area, the greater demand for the storage.
I said that helps with drive demand, but that's not the determining factor. It's the population that determines how much supply is needed.
I think one of the board members was asking that clarification too, where she was saying that typically you want 7 square feet, but in a rental community could support more like around 8 square feet.
Right, because the national average is 7 to 8. In my calculations, I use 7 to be conservative, but where there's a high density of renter, I would argue that 8 is more likely the sweet spot for how much storage a market needs.
Right, and my question is, if we now throw into your analysis the fact that the communities that we have, the rental communities that we have already provide storage on site, wouldn't that change your analysis?
No, because it would still be at the 7. So maybe just to give you the benefit of the doubt and trying to interrogate her and find holes in her testimony, even if she was wrong, like you're saying, you're trying to point out that, oh, well, she didn't consider this, she didn't consider that, so maybe she's off. She would still be at the 7 square feet because that's what the national average is, correct?
No, I agree with that, but that would be satisfied by the existing supply because we're not taking into consideration the existing supply.
No, because she's saying that there's nothing within the 1 mile radius.
But I am saying that there is because the communities already have the storage units
Do we
provided
know
on
how much
site.
square footage they have?
Well, I mean, I had 20 seconds to do a Google.
Right, but
pull,
see, we
so-
don't know.
Right, we
they-
don't, well,
we don't know.
exactly, we don't know.
But
That's what I'm
It's
saying.
the population that drives how much we need. Not, I mean, I get, never mind.
Okay.
I'm
Thank
not
you.
following you entirely.
You're not following entirely saying that because the rental communities already provide storage on site, that should be taken into account when we are deciding whether Somerville needs another storage facility?
No, we're not.
Okay.
It's getting late. Good
I know.
evening.
Good evening.
Phil Decker, 160 West Cliff Street. We describe Somerville as a walkable, vibrant community with a very active downtown, with a beautiful historic Borough Hall right across the street from your site, with a senior citizen center right near the site as well, which we're all concerned about. And those are just side notes. What we did do was compare Somerville to Westfield and Princeton, perhaps, as being walkable, vibrant communities. I did some research while I was sitting here listening to a lot of the data being thrown around. And I guess this is a rhetorical question, but why aren't there any storage facilities in Westfield and Princeton, self-storage facilities? Is it perhaps the board there had the wisdom not to approve them?
She can't answer that.
I don't have the answer to that.
Jason, what's up? Is
If,
there
if,
anyone
if there's
else?
no one else from the
Anything-
public, I'm assuming you're gonna end the night.
Yes.
Are we ready for 3 or 4 more?
especially if you have one more quarter left in the Knick game that you can watch. So what I guess we'll get you all kidding aside, we'll get you the data that you asked for, the exhibits. We'll provide that.
Thank you.
The additional item that Cliff had asked for.
Including
Yeah.
the items you referred,
Yeah.
item or items you referred to.
Yep.
Yep, that's fine.
Can I jump in here right now? Because we're losing the crowd. The word historical was bounced around several times tonight.
Yeah.
I think we better clear that issue up. You know, the big elephant in this room is that house. I realize that. So far as I know, and I think I'm accurate, that has not been designated as a historical building. And I also understand, and Cliff, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have the authority to even do that or even talk about it. So I'd like to, just so anybody sitting here understand where we're going with this thing. We are not we don't designate the historical. Go to the council, talk to them. We can't do it here.
This board cannot make a declaration as to a historical site. Ma'am, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. There was a submission for historical designation for the building at 20 West End. Twice it was submitted, and it was never returned signed by the Borough of Somerville. I worked in that building for 32 years, and I was a part of that. We even got a plaque outside, and I have the history of the building. If anyone is interested, it's a very important building in Somerville that I would sincerely appreciate consideration before it's demolished.
That has to go to the council, not to us. That's
Yeah,
all I'm trying to
I was
say.
going to say, this board cannot make such a declaration. We do not have the jurisdiction to do so. However, you can go to the council, and the council would coordinate whatever historical preservation organization that we have that would either follow through on that or do what would be necessary. You said something has been filed, but it's not signed. Has it been submitted to anybody?
It was submitted twice to the Historical Society in the borough, and to our knowledge, before we were asked to vacate the premises, because I worked there, the paperwork was not returned signed as approved. It was submitted twice.
I think that
by the
has to
Hughes
be,
family.
well, I think that has to be followed up on, because if it hasn't been submitted, then it hasn't been submitted, unfortunately, that's.
The whole situation is unfortunate, and I would sincerely appreciate if this board would consider not demolishing that building and keeping it as a historical part of Somerville that can be converted.
But you know, you're asking for a de facto declaration from this board, which does not have the authority to do this.
Not necessarily,
Can-
I'm
can-
not an attorney, I'm just speaking.
Can I just, I'm sorry, just 1 second.
Okay, and then I want to respond. Go ahead.
So, I mean, now we're getting it, I'm not saying that there's going to be a comment period where everyone can say their feelings on the application.
Right.
There will be.
No, I understand, but
Not tonight.
what I was going to say is, typically when you file an application for development, it's in the MLUL, it's section 110. I've had to deal with it many times. If a property is in one of 3 categories, there's historic preservation jurisdiction, and this isn't one of them. One is where the site's been deemed historic by ordinance, and I also believe that this is a different area of law, but I also believe the property owner has to be involved in the designation. So that's one.
That's
Two,
correct.
2 is if you're in a historic district, which this is not. And then 3rd is if there's some mention of the property in the master plan as to historic designation. But even that only gives the zoning board or planning board, whichever board you're in front of, an advisory role and the HPC an advisory role just to comment and provide some, commentary on the application. It doesn't give the board jurisdiction to keep it maintained.
That is correct.
But I do understand the comment, and the client is here, and they hear what what this person is saying, and I understand the nostalgic and the importance and that you're raising. I understand that. I'm not trying to downplay it or jump
No,
in.
I'm also 4 generations Somerville, and my son currently, who's 5th generation, still lives in town in my childhood home. So my roots are deep in Somerville and the love of the history of the town. I just
Oh, of
question the
course.
appropriate-
Oh, of course.
I
No.
just question the appropriateness of, it's a wonderful proposal, but I just don't think 20 West End Avenue is
Yeah, and again, I just wanted to jump in on the legal question. The comments like that, you're obviously well entitled to speak about them later, but the board doesn't have jurisdiction over the historic aspect of the.
No, I've just mentioned, discussed that, so, and that is the law. We do not have jurisdiction to do that.
Well, I thank you for letting me comment.
I mean, I don't want you to feel that I'm being dismissive of you, but your route is a different one than before this board.
Thank you. I just hope that the board takes into consideration the appropriateness of what is currently at 20 West End Avenue and what is proposed. I thank you.
Well, I believe Mr. Tuvel had correctly mentioned what the parameters of the board's consideration are, and its limitation would be in an advisory capacity, and nothing more. That could not be a fulcrum to approve or deny an application.
All right, so is that okay if we go back to just scheduling real, because we're concluded with testimony for the evening, obviously.
Yes, we are.
So what would be the next available meeting date for the board? I know you're a busy board, so I just.
Well, we convene here every 2 weeks, every Wednesday. And we have to look at the schedule. Because I know we've got a couple more coming up, Mike.
Yeah, we have tentatively a garage application, tentatively, for the next meeting, which is the 17th. The first meeting in
Yeah,
July.
is no good, right?
Jason, you understand that we have the other self-storage on 206.
Right, no, I understand.
And I think at the second meeting, we have PSC&G who asked.
That's July 15th?
Correct.
It was supposed to be in next meeting, Jason, but they asked for a continuance, I do believe, to the second meeting in July.
It'd be July 15th, wouldn't it be?
So assuming the garage is the next meeting, and then we're into August.
Right.
We don't meet on July 29th?
On July, we meet, no.
Just the first and third.
Oh, okay,
Wednesday.
all right.
All right, can I ask this, if this is okay? Your next, hear me out before you
Go ahead,
fire
go
back.
ahead.
Your next actually scheduled meeting is June 17th, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is my question. Can we carry it to that day for the sole purpose of then carrying it to another day? Like just for a scheduling carry? Because I need to check with my team in terms of availability, because you're saying the 1st is out, the 15th is out, and I just checked, I'm away the first week of August. So could we just carry to June 17th for the sole purpose of announcing the next meeting date at that meeting? Is that?
I would have no objection to you doing that, provided you're ready on the 17th with all.
Yeah,
the
I would
data.
coordinate with
Yeah.
with Ryan and with Michael and with yourself as to the appropriate date. You can obviously consult with the chairman in between those meetings, and we could figure out the best date.
All right.
Right, Jason, so you're basically saying at the next board hearing, we'll lock down when it'll be heard again.
Right, we're carrying.
There'll be no further testimony.
Right, my
on it.
proposal is we carry it to June 17th without further notice, and at June 17th, the board would announce the actual date where there would be testimony. There'd be no testimony on June 17th.
And you'll notice for whatever new date we.
No,
have.
I wouldn't notice. You would just make the announcement on June 17th as to what the new date is
Well,
without further.
legally, we can do that. I mean, I'm of the opinion that I would prefer that you do notice.
But I've noticed already twice for this,
I
actually
understand.
3 times, I think, so.
Why don't we see what the date ends up being, the next hearing? If it's gonna be in September, then we can have it, or if the board decides it's too long, we'll deal with that noticing issue.
That's fine.
All right, but, you know, you're on notice that we could,
PSE&G.
That they keep on kicking it down the road. I mean, we're wasting.
Well, that's another point. We could adjourn it to July 15th, to your point, and see what happens with PSE&G if they decide to move it again, and then we would at least have the date.
How many times has PSE&G done this, Mike?
Twice.
Oh, how about we do this? How about we do this?
It was supposed to be March, supposed to be June, this is the third time.
Yeah.
It's twice been moved.
How about we
Twice.
do
I thought it was
this?
the first. This will be the third,
We
yeah.
set them up and PSC&G number 2 on the agenda. If we get
All right.
them-
on the 15th?
Okay.
On the 15th?
No, we're talking about July, yes, sorry, Cliff. You're
July
saying July 15th.
Yeah.
All right, let me just check.
Can you get your team on the field on the 15th?
Let me just check with everybody real quick.
All right.
That's a good point. Put them number 2 on the
I got it, Morgan.
yeah.
Then we cancel the meeting and we have nothing.
I'll give them gift cards so they can put it back on. Yeah. So that's what we're gonna do. And there'll be no notice. Right.
I'm just, sorry, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'm just having a lot of, like, scheduling. Could we just adjourn it to June 17th for the sole purpose of just figuring out between the next 2 weeks, I'll correspond with Michael and Cliff on availability, then we can announce it then. And then if it's too far out and they want me to renotice again, I'll do it. I prefer not to, but we could always talk about that. That's fine.
We don't, you look, no matter, for both the board and the applicant, the notice issue is critical. I would, if we want you to do that, I would hope that you would accede to our request. Well, let's see when the date is.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay,
Because we already had you scheduled.
Right.
yeah. That works.
All right, so could we just make a formal announcement that this is, if you want me to do it, I could do it.
The next hearing on this application will be Wednesday, June 17th at 7 PM in this location. At that time, the applicant will appear as has been discussed in terms of a scheduling, arrangement. There will be, go ahead.
No, go on.
There will be, it will not be there will not be new testimony offered at this meeting.
All right, and there'll be no further notice.
Right. There'll be no further notice.
Sole purpose of meeting on the 17th is for scheduling.
Correct.
Someone want to move that? Move, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right, thank you.
Any other business to come before the board?
How about that annual report? It's a little early.
We can talk about the annual report.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion. Are we adjourned yet? I make a motion to adjourn? Yeah.
Moved in second. All in favor of adjournment?
All right, let's go next.
Opposed?